Chapter 195. When Sheng went out, Bu Jingyan was nowhere to be found. She searched for him and found him by the pond. But, why is the female lead here too? F***ck. How did you two little bitches hook up with each other? Sir, thank you for just now. Qin Longyue's body was dripping wet. As the cold wind blew, she couldn't help but shiver. Even her voice trembled as she asked, "May I know Sir's name so that I can repay you in the future?" Impatience flashed in Bu Jingyun's eyes. He wanted to leave, but Qin Longyue's body swayed, and she fell into his arms. Fuck. Sheng, who was watching the show, exploded. Female lead. Are you trying to ascend to the heavens? The male lead is still waiting for you to pamper him. Why are you tormenting my villain? Sheng rushed forward and supported Qin Longyue. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. Why are you throwing yourself into my future husband's arms, Qin Longyue? Future husband Bu Jingyun. I don't want to say that I know her. Shameless humph. Killing intent flashed in Qin Longyue's eyes. She pulled her arm back from Sheng's grasp. I just lost my balance, I didn't mean anything else. Do you think I fancy a piece of trash? He's just a good-looking guy. Only Shen Yaoguang would treat him like a treasure. Sheng didn't miss the disdain and contempt in her eyes. He patted his chest exaggeratedly. You scared me to death. I thought you were going to steal him from me. Qin Longyue looked at Bu Jingyan with pity, then nodded politely. Thank you for just now, sir. Bu Jingyan turned his head away. Qin Longyue frowned, the disdain in her eyes growing. Senior sister Yaoguang, I'll take my leave first. She didn't wait for Sheng's reply and turned to leave. Why did she thank you just now? Sheng looked at Bu Jingyan curiously. The female lead didn't seem to fancy him? Imph. Bu Jingyan coldly turned his head away. Sheng. What the hell are you snorting for? After much effort, Sheng finally managed to dig out the details of the incident from Bu Jingyan. The female lead was being bullied, and Bu Jingyan just happened to show up. Those people were probably afraid of causing trouble, so they ran away. Sheng was dumbfounded. What kind of rescue was this? So what was the female lead's train of thought? How could she be bullied? This was illogical. Wasn't the female lead supposed to be so cool? How could she not handle a few small shrimps? Are you kidding me? Did you bring that stupid thing I gave you last time? Sheng suddenly asked. Bu Jingyan was at a loss. What kind of lousy toy was that? The one the academy gave him? He had thrown it away long ago. That thing could only block one attack, and it would be useless after it was used. The Medicine King tripod, Sheng added. Bu Jingyan was speechless. The Medicine King's cauldron was just a piece of junk. What did Bu Jingyan think of those people on the continent who would do anything to get their hands on the Medicine King's cauldron? Even a spit from each of them could drown you. I did. Bu Jingyan snorted. No wonder. Sheng stroked his chin with a look that said, I've seen through the truth. The female lead was after the Medicine King's cauldron. Even if she wanted it, she had to be alive to get it. Sheng gave a sinister smile. Bu Jingyan saw this from the side, and felt that Sheng was a demon standing next to him. That devastatingly beautiful face was a complete lie. The banquet began. As the host, Father Shen naturally had to make a speech. A leader's speech was like an old lady's foot-binding cloth, long and smelly. Sheng yawned several times, and she was about to fall asleep. Today, I would like to take this opportunity to make an announcement. Father Shen paused. My daughter Yaoguang and the third prince will be engaged today at the 100 Clan banquet. What the hell? Engaged? With the third prince? Was there something wrong with his brain? Sheng instantly woke up and looked at Father Shen. Father Shen also happened to see her and waved at her. Yaoguang, come here. The third prince had already walked out and was standing next to Father Shen. He was also looking at her with deep affection. Sheng was speechless. Mommy, this plot is toxic. Everyone's eyes fell on her and the handsome man beside her. Sheng was leaning half her body on the man, and she was even holding the man's arm. Their posture was so intimate that it was obvious that they weren't in an ordinary relationship. Everyone's eyes turned cryptic. There was going to be a good show. Sheng didn't move. He only twitched his lips and said, I didn't agree to any marriage. If you want to get engaged, don't come to me. She had no idea that this was going to happen, so the Shen family didn't care about her opinion at all. They were fine as long as she could get some benefits. Heh. The original owner of this body didn't want to destroy the Shen family without reason. A family like this was better off destroyed. The third prince was a scumbag who abandoned the female lead. Later on, he turned over a new leaf and loved the female lead to death. Didn't he know that stealing a man from the female lead would lead to a terrible death? Yao Guang. Father Shen's face darkened. What nonsense are you talking about? Come here. You don't understand? Then I can't help it. I don't sell things that increase my IQ. Shisheng shrugged helplessly. Shin Yaoguang. Yaoguang, do you not like me? The third prince stopped Father Shin and asked affectionately. That's right, I don't like you. Do you think your money and everyone loves you and you love everyone? Idiot. The third prince's face stiffened. This answer was too straightforward. The script he had prepared died in his stomach, and he didn't know how to continue. He was so handsome and elegant. How could there be someone who didn't like him? This Shin Yaoguang really didn't know what was good for her. At such a young age, she was already so close to a man. If it weren't for her good looks and the fact that the royal family needed the Shin family, he wouldn't have agreed to get engaged with her. She actually didn't know what was good for her. That's good. Shisheng stood up straight and walked to the center. There are so many people here today. I'll let everyone be my witness. The stunned crowd. This development didn't seem right. I, Shen Yaoguang, will sever all ties with the Shen family today. We will never interact with each other again. Shisheng's voice spread through the hall. At this moment, all sound seemed to disappear. What did you say? Father Shen thought he was hallucinating and couldn't help but ask. Shisheng very considerately repeated. I said I, Shen Yaoguang, will sever all ties with the Shen family today. We will never interact with each other again. You. Father Shen was so angry that his hand trembled. He pointed at her and couldn't say anything else. The anger in his chest was rising. The family had spent so many resources to cultivate her. She wanted to clear her name with just a few words. He took a deep breath and suddenly suppressed his anger. He put on the airs of a loving father. Yaoguang, don't mess around. There are so many guests here today. Even if you want to make a joke, you have to look at the occasion. Is it because I've spoiled you too much that you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth? Father Shen's words were well said. First, he said that she was messing around and joking. Then, he said that he had spoiled her too much. He wanted everyone to know how spoiled she was as the eldest daughter of the Shen family. Even at such an important occasion, he could tolerate her messing around. If you still want to sever ties with him like this, then you're a heartless person. Asterisk tips and updates. Chapter 196. You can call me an ingrate or an unfilial daughter, but I won't be coming back here. Don't involve me in your business. Shisheng shrugged nonchalantly. Men, send this unfilial daughter back to her room, Mr. Shin ordered with an ashen face. This damned girl was bewitched today. It seemed that he didn't care much about her. She didn't even know who was in charge of the Shen family. A few disciples of the Shen family walked out from the crowd. Young miss, please excuse me. Shin Jin looked at Shisheng awkwardly before cupping his fists. It's not nice to fight to the death. Shisheng looked at Mr. Shin with a half smile. Are you sure you want to embarrass yourself on such an important occasion? Mr. Shin's eyes were about to spit fire. You know this is an important occasion. You know how to embarrass yourself. Take her away. He would teach this unfilial daughter a lesson later. Shin Jin wanted to grab Shisheng, but before his hand could touch her, he felt a sharp pain on the back of his hand. He pulled back his hand and saw that it was swollen. An iron sword had appeared in the girl's hand. When he looked over, the cold blade of the sword slashed at him. Shin Yaoguang. Mr. Shen's angry roar resounded through the hall. Shisheng's hand didn't stop at all. The iron sword fell at a speed visible to the naked eye. A strong wind swept from behind Shisheng. She frowned and the iron sword was forced to turn around and sweep behind her. The person who attacked Shisheng was a disciple of the Shen family. The iron sword swept past him, and he fell to the ground. With one person dead, The crowd was shocked to realize that today's matter was serious. Mr. Shen was so angry that he panted heavily. He ordered the guests to leave. Although these people wanted to watch the show, they didn't have the final say. They all left the hall. Soon, only Shi Sheng and the Shen family were left in the hall. Shen Yaoguang, we raised you for so many years. We gave you food and clothes and let you live a glorious life. Is this how you repay us? Mr. Shen's face darkened. His eyes were full of disappointment and murderous intent. An uncontrollable daughter. He didn't want her. Do you know anything else other than that? Shi Sheng tilted his head and smiled faintly, but the smile did not reach his eyes. His dark eyes were like dark stagnant water, which only made people feel gloomy. He looked like a demon that had crawled out of a dark abyss. Father Shen's heart thumped wildly. This person was not his daughter. His daughter would not laugh like a devil. Who are you? What did you do to Yaoguang? Father Shen suddenly roared such a sentence. The surrounding people were all baffled. Wasn't this their young miss? Was the patriarch so angry that he became muddle-headed? I'm whoever you think I am. Shi Sheng continued to provoke him with a fearless face. Father Shen almost spat out a mouthful of blood. She was whoever he thought she was. How would he know who she was? Capture her, capture her. No matter who she was, he would not let her go today. The disciples of the Shen family looked at each other. What are you standing there for? Grab her. Only then did the disciples of the Shen family rush forward, trying to capture Shi Sheng. These people were all of the younger generation, so how could they be a match for Shi Sheng? They were all taken down in a few moves. The smart ones lay on the ground and played dead, while the stupid ones got up. Only death awaited them. Father Shen watched as Shi Sheng killed without hesitation. The flames in his eyes burned fiercely, as if he wanted to burn her to ashes. His gaze sharpened and he suddenly rushed towards Bu Jingyun. Shen Yaoguang, stop or I'll kill him. Shi Sheng glanced over, and his expression changed. Father Shen knew that he had made the right bet. This pretty boy was indeed very important to her. However, Shi Sheng did not stop there. He drew a few beautiful strokes with his sword, and blood splattered everywhere. The people around him fell to the ground one after another. It was as if the space had entered another dimension, and it was completely silent. Shi Sheng's head turned, and his red lips moved slightly. Are you threatening me? If you don't want him to die, then surrender obediently. Otherwise I'll kill him. Father Shen pressed the dagger in his hand against Bu Jingyun's neck. Fine, go ahead. Shi Sheng suddenly withdrew his sword. Do you dare to kill him? He's just a pretty boy. What's there to be afraid of? I don't believe that you don't care about him. She had brought a person with no cultivation to her side, so it was obvious how much she cared about him. How could she not care about him? Pretty boy? Pfft. Shi Sheng suddenly laughed. His smile was quite vivid, and although his eyes were still calm, they were no longer as sinister as before. Bu Jingyun, look, they're all saying that you're my pretty boy. Humph. He did not want her to keep him. As a real man, he absolutely could not allow that. Bu Jingyun proudly turned his head away. Because of the pull, a bloody mark appeared on his neck. Shi Sheng narrowed his eyes and reminded Father Shen. If you don't let go, the Shen family will be destroyed. You want to destroy the Shen family alone? Father Shen sneered. What do you take the Shen family for? Who said I'm alone? Shi Sheng looked at Father Shen like he was looking at an idiot. Didn't you hear what I called him just now? What? Father Shen did not react for a moment. What did she call him just now? Bu Jingyun? Father Shen's expression changed. Who on the continent did not know the name Bu Jingyun? He looked at the frail man he was holding hostage, then at Shi Sheng, who was smiling maliciously. No. How could Bu Jingyun be so young? And how could he have no cultivation at all? Bu Jingyun had been famous for 100 years. No matter how powerful he was, there was no way he could maintain such a youthful appearance. This was definitely not Bu Jingyun. This woman was lying to him. The great Shen family's patriarch is using a man to threaten a weak woman. If word of this got out, it would be a laughingstock for years to come. Weak woman, with her lethality, she had the nerve to use that word on him. How shameless. Cut the crap and put down your weapon. Father Shen firmly believed that this woman was lying to him. He pressed down harder on Bu Jingyun's dagger. Bu Jingyun's nose twitched when he smelled blood. His stomach felt a little uncomfortable. Shisheng frowned. In a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Father Shen looked around in shock. A black shadow flashed past his eyes. Before he could see clearly, he felt a sharp pain in his arm. His wrist was flicked away by something cold, and someone kicked him in the chest. He was forced to let go of Bu Jingyun. Bu Jingyun was pulled to Shisheng's side. The smell of his own blood mixed with the blood on the ground in the distance. It made him want to vomit. Just then, someone stuffed something into his mouth. It was cool, sweet, and fragrant. It melted in his mouth and washed away the smell of blood. He looked up at the girl beside him. Her smooth face carried an indescribable coldness. She tore the hem of her clothes and wrapped it around the wound on his neck to stop the bleeding. This two-faced woman. She acted like she didn't care, but she clearly cared about him. Please vote. Chapter 197. Shisheng finished bandaging Bu Jingyun's wound, then turned to look at Father Shen, who had been kicked aside by her. She had wondered why Father Shen hadn't attacked her directly, but had instead used Bu Jingyun to threaten her. But now she knew. Father Shen was injured, and it was a very serious injury. No wonder he suddenly wanted her to marry into the royal family. The royal family needed the Shen family's support. She didn't know what Father Shen was planning, but it definitely wasn't a good idea. Shisheng's mind raced for a moment, then understood the crux of the matter. Jun Hanlin had probably attacked the Shen family. The male lead was really awesome. If Jun Hanlin knew that he was just making a wedding dress for himself, would he be so angry that he stomped his feet? Imagine the male lead's face when he stomps his feet. It's pretty interesting. Shisheng's mind wandered, and Father Shen took the opportunity to call for help. By the time Shisheng came back to his senses, the empty hall was once again filled with people. This time, the people who came were obviously not the same as those who could be killed with a single strike. The weakest among them was a 7th-level spiritual king. Kill her. Father Shen was furious. He didn't care who this woman was, or why she was pretending to be his daughter. Shisheng curled his lips. He grabbed Bu Jingyun's wrist, then took out a small purple ball with his other hand and threw it. Bang! Shisheng jumped out of the hall on the iron sword. The hall behind him collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and purple lightning crackled everywhere. The shockwave from the explosion spread, and the people outside could feel its terrifying power. They quickly ran out of the Shen family residence. Shisheng controlled the iron sword to rise to the top, then looked down. When he saw that most of the people had left, Shisheng took out a small ball and threw it down like a bomb. The entire Shen family residence collapsed one after another, filling the air with dust and lightning. Rumble! Deafening thunder suddenly rumbled in the sky, and large dark clouds gathered. Shisheng's hand froze in midair. Damn, I was too excited to throw it, and forgot about the system's reminder. Shisheng hurriedly put away the ball, then controlled the iron sword to fly to a place where there were no dark clouds. Bu Jingyun looked up at the lightning that was ready to strike. Is this lightning for you? Why else would they be sightseeing? But they're following you. What? Shisheng looked up, and sure enough, the entire dark cloud was moving with her at a strange speed. You guys can't be that fast if you're just waiting for the sack. This was not in line with the studies of clouds and rain. You can't change it just because you're the heavenly Tao. You'll be complained about. Shisheng found a relatively flat area and tossed Bu Jingyun down. Then he flew off into the distance with his thundercloud. Bu Jingyun felt a little uncomfortable as he looked at the lightning bolts falling from the sky. He wanted to follow them, but he realized that he had no other choice but to walk. Therefore, when he walked to the place where the thunderclouds were densest, he saw Shisheng lying on the ground, not knowing if he was dead or alive. His heart was in his throat as he rushed forward. Shenyaoguang. Shisheng's eyes were slightly closed. When he heard her voice, his eyelashes fluttered, and he responded softly. Bu Jingyun breathed a sigh of relief. This woman was a walking disaster. How could she die so easily? Pretentious prick gets struck by lightning. The ancients didn't lie to me, Shisheng muttered weakly. Then he raised his middle finger to the sky. The cultivation world struck me. The fantasy world struck me again. But in the end, it still didn't kill me. Idiot. It hurts. Shisheng shrank into Bu Jingyun's arms, her face scrunched up in pain. Bu Jingyun didn't know what he was thinking, but for some reason, he hugged Shisheng tightly. She was wearing a strange robe, but it was in tatters. He tried several times to take it off, but he couldn't. In the end, he had no choice but to carry her away. Shisheng woke up abruptly. Her face was pale, and her chest was gasping for air. It was that dream again. You're awake. A clear voice pulled her back to reality. She jerked her head up. The man in red was standing against the light, his expression indifferent. Shisheng's eyes darted around, and she was completely awake. She turned her head and looked around. Where is this place? Wasn't she struck by lightning? How did she get here? Bu Jingyun took 2 steps forward. The light on his handsome face faded, but he was still breathtakingly beautiful. He lowered his eyes to look at her. 9 Silences Hall. 9 Silences Hall? Why did you bring me here? To raise you. Humph. Only she was allowed to raise him, and he wasn't allowed to raise her? Raise your grandpa. Do you think you can afford to raise me? You can raise 100 million yuan every minute. Why are you wearing red again? Shisheng frowned at his clothes. They were dazzling, and so good-looking. She was going blind. This is my territory. I have the final say in what I wear. I like wearing red. Don't tell me you want to marry me so badly? Then when I recover, we'll hold the wedding. Shisheng smiled, her eyes crinkling into crescents. Bu Jingyun. Shameless. Bu Jingyun flicked his sleeves and left. However, if one looked closely, they would notice that the tips of his ears were red, which made him look especially cute. Shisheng pursed her lips. She tried to move her arms, but found that they were sore and swollen. She was still wearing the robe that had blocked the lightning for her. Fortunately, spiritual energy was universal. Otherwise, she really might have been struck to death by lightning. Game over. Shisheng took off the damaged robe and felt it up and down. Fortunately, it wasn't a big deal. Shisheng recuperated for a few days, and the soreness in her body finally subsided. However, she could still feel it. She couldn't even take off Bu Jingyun's clothes. Shisheng stretched her arms and legs. A woman came in with a tray and placed the food on the table. Miss, it's time to eat. This woman was Xiaohe, who had been taking care of her for the past few days. She was a very cute girl. Why is it porridge again? Shisheng glanced at the food on the table with a displeased expression. Xiaohe covered her mouth and laughed. Miss, you're not feeling well. The hall master specifically ordered us to make something lighter. After that, she added, Miss, you're so lucky. Our hall master has never been so nice to anyone before. Is that so? Nice my ass. Then he doesn't have any other women around him? He's more than 100 years old. That. No. Xiaohe shook her head. The protectors are the ones who serve the hall master. We rarely see the hall master. Shisheng. Why do I feel like I'm seeing an endless gay love scene? The hall master and the enforcers. They were a couple in all the novels. Looking at how worried the enforcers were about Bu Jingyun, it was actually possible. She imagined the scene of the two of them rolling around. The enforcers were strong, so they were definitely on top. The eyes of the crowd were clear. The hall master was indeed a gigolo. No, stop. If you continue imagining things, I'm going to get excited. Shisheng suddenly felt a chill. She wasn't going to break them up, was she? No, I'm only interested in breaking up the male and female leads. Imagining things was an illness. Chapter 198. Square City was just like its name. It was a square city. Because it was close to the forest where the magical beasts lived, the city was basically ungoverned. The whole city was very chaotic. However, Square City had its own master. The Castellan He family was the most powerful family in the city. Everyone who lived in Square City had been bullied by the He family. When Shisheng came here, he had no intention of occupying the city. However, there was someone in the He family who wasn't afraid of death, and wanted to steal her sword of justice. How could he do that? That thing was her tool to kill people. However, that little bastard didn't win, and had one of his arms broken by Shisheng. That little bastard even brought his old man out. Shisheng had been suppressing his anger, so he took care of the He family in a fit of anger. However, Shisheng was also injured. She was only a mortal now, so she couldn't use the small ball on a large scale. She could only use her hands. If it weren't for the fact that she had a lot of things in her space, she might not be able to defeat these people in a one-on-one fight. The people in Square City lived on the edge of a knife. No one had any kindness left. There was only endless plunder. This was Shisheng's favorite place. He didn't care about human nature, conscience, morals, or affection. Winner takes all. Winner takes all. According to the rules of Square City, whoever killed the Castellan would be the new Castellan. Shisheng destroyed the He family, so she would be the Castellan. However, there were always people who took advantage of the situation. Some people wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Shisheng and get the Castellan position without any effort. Cough cough. Shisheng supported himself with his iron sword. His face was pale as he coughed twice. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. There were two people standing in front of him, surrounded by blood and corpses. It was like a scene of carnage. Little girl, don't struggle. You're strong, but you're already at the end of your rope, right? Mana stared at Shisheng maliciously. You don't look too bad. Be good and call me Big Brother a few times so we can have some fun. Maybe we'll spare your life. Ever since she started doing missions, she had never been in such a sorry state. Taking turns to fight. She hated it. Bah. Shisheng swallowed a mouthful of blood before casually wiping it off. Do you guys think you're so pretty or that your cultivation is unparalleled in this world? How dare you run your mouth in front of me with your looks? Mane was furious. Just as he was about to speak, he was stopped by Manby. Little girl, there's no point in talking too much. Oh. Shisheng's lips tugged up into a smile. Ripples appeared in her calm eyes, making her look strange and sinister. Then I'll teach you guys how to start anew. Shisheng's figure flashed and he rushed over with his iron sword. The two men probably didn't expect Shisheng to still have the strength. They were surprised for a moment, but they quickly fought back. They thought that even if she still had the strength, it would definitely be the last. However, they soon realized that this was not the case. Apart from her pale face, she didn't look exhausted or exhausted at all. However, the two of them were gradually unable to hold on. This woman was very strange. Manby wanted to retreat. If they continued fighting like this, they would die sooner or later. Shisheng's iron sword was already in front of him. He suddenly grabbed Mana next to him and threw him onto Shisheng's iron sword. Then he ran outside. Man-A was pierced by the iron sword. He probably didn't expect that he would die because of his companion. The girl's slightly cold and sarcastic face was the last thing he saw. See, I said I'll teach you a lesson. Don't worry, he'll come down to accompany you soon. Shisheng pulled his iron sword away and chased after him. Manby was about to run out of the city lord's residence when he suddenly felt a chill on his back. There was a hard object in front of his chest. His body suddenly fell forward and fell on the gate of the city lord's residence. The sharp blade scraped back and forth in his chest, scraping against his bones. It was extremely ear-piercing. That sound was like the prelude to death. Everything in front of him turned into nothingness. There were footsteps behind him. They were very light, as if they were stepping on his heart. He heard a girl's light voice behind him. Don't be a human in your next life. It's too tiring. Shisheng pulled the iron sword out of the lifeless corpse and sat down without caring about his image. He was gasping for air. His internal organs felt like they were being burned by fire. It was a burning pain. Shisheng's little face was scrunched up. After a while, she recovered and lay down with her head raised. If another person came, she would have died. Killing people was also a physical activity. If only she could imagine the other person dying, she would feel good. Host, don't be too imaginative. The system suddenly blurted out. Shisheng ignored it. The system didn't say anything. The ground was full of blood and stains. Shisheng was lying in a pile of corpses. At first glance, one would think that he was dead. The sky gradually darkened. The moon was above the treetops. The cold moonlight shone on the ground, making the entire city lord's residence look gloomy. It was a peaceful night. The fight had been fought. Shisheng naturally had no reason not to occupy it. Thus she occupied it and declared herself king. So many people had tried to kill her, but she hadn't died. Her strength was unquestionable. The people of Four Corner City had tacitly acknowledged her status as the city lord. Ever since Shisheng became the city lord, Four Corner City had become even more chaotic. The newly elected city lord's residence only had her as its commander. She didn't care about anything. Other than the occasional city lord swaggering through the streets, there was no one to be seen at all. With no one in charge, how could Four Corner City not be in chaos? Even walking on the streets would cause people to rob them. However, Four Corner City had been especially lively these past few days. The floating population had increased by quite a bit, increasing the income of the jobless youths who reaped without sowing. Qin Langyue and Jiang Mu were stopped by a few people when they entered Four Corner City. Qin Langyue hadn't had a good time in Shisheng's absence. The people from the academy had been making things difficult for her. And there was even a fool by her side who only knew how to cause trouble. This time, she had come to Four Corner City for the sake of the treasure that was about to appear. Zhong Shi had told her about it. The academy would also bring people here, but she had left first. Newcomers? You have to pay a protection fee to enter the city. Hurry up and hand over all your valuables. The sloppily dressed youths whistled as they spoke their classic lines. Although there had been a lot of people these past few days, very few of them dared to make a move. Most of them had come in groups, and some of them were from large families. They didn't dare to touch those people. Now that they saw a young girl and a young man, how could they let them go? Get out of the way. Qin Langyue scolded with a cold face. Yo, little girl, you're really hot. The youths roared with laughter. This is Four Corner City, not those places outside. If you don't pay a protection fee, don't even think about entering. You're courting death. Jiang Mu's aura surged, but before he could make a move, a person suddenly ran over from afar, shouting something. The city lord has ordered us to close the city gates. From today onwards, no one will be allowed to enter Four Corner City. The city lord has ordered us to close the city gates. From today onwards, no one will be allowed to enter Four Corner City. Asterisk tipping and updating. Thanks to E, Pimple, and Soft Girl for their tipping. Chapter 199. Is the city lord in the city? The surrounding people immediately whispered to each other. I saw her leave the city last time, but I didn't see her come back. Their city lord always appears and disappears like a ghost. Finding her is harder than finding the heavens. Closing the city gates at this time. What is the city lord trying to do? The people who came here are all people with status on the continent, so the city lord isn't afraid of offending them. But now that I think about it, it actually feels good. Those people think too highly of themselves and look down on us. Now that the city lord has locked them outside, ha ha ha, it really feels good. The people of Four Corner City more or less had some grudges with the people of the continent. They had either killed someone on the continent and couldn't be tolerated, or they were hiding from their enemies. So when these people looked at the people of the continent, they naturally didn't treat them well. Those who had entered the city before had already fought with the locals no less than 10 times. Since the city lord hadn't come out to speak, they could only curse in their hearts. The people blocking Qin Langyue looked at each other. Young lady, our city lord has already said that the city gates will be closed soon. If you don't pay the protection fee now, we'll have no choice but to kick you out. It's not safe outside Four Corner City at night. The magical beasts in Setting Sun Forest come out for a stroll from time to time. Setting Sun Forest was the forest outside Four Corner City. It covered an extremely large area, and no one could traverse the entire forest. There were countless magical beasts in there, so many people chose to train here. Qin Langyue frowned. It's still daytime. Why is your city lord closing the gates? It was just past noon, so it was still far from nightfall. There was definitely something fishy about closing the gates for no reason. How would we know what the city lord is doing? The youth scoffed. This was the first order the city lord had given since she took office. Young lady, are you going in or not? Look, the people responsible for closing the gates are already here. Sure enough, a few tall, burly men came over and chased the people standing at the city gates out without a word. For Corner City's gates had always been guarded by people, so even if the city lord had changed, the gates would still be guarded. All of you get out. The city lord said that no one is allowed to enter. What are you all standing there for? Get out, hurry up. What's wrong with you all? Is there any law? The burly man sneered at the person who spoke. Law. In Four Corner City, the city lord is the law. Isn't this city meant for people to live in? Why are you still occupying it and not letting people in? Isn't this unreasonable? That's right. Why should we go out? It's so dangerous outside at night. Let me in. Let us in, let us in. After that person shouted, the city gate was blocked by people. At this moment, the people outside were arguing with those who had already entered and were being chased out. What's the fuss about? Don't blame me for being impolite if you keep arguing. One of the big men suddenly threw out a ball of green spiritual energy. The scene instantly quieted down. Spirit Paragon. This man was actually a spiritual venerable. A spirit paragon could easily become an elder of a large family, or a large sect on the continent. The spiritual venerables of Foursquare City actually closed the city gates? The cultivation of the people in Four Corner City was much higher than the people outside. Not only did the people here have to face the threat of the humans, but they also had to face the threat of the setting sun forest. Those who didn't work hard had died long ago. Those who stayed were naturally strong and capable. However, they weren't everywhere. There were only a dozen or so spirit paragons in Four Corner City. May I ask this big brother, why are you closing the city gates? Qin Langyue was standing closer to the crowd. Since no one was making a ruckus, her voice was very abrupt. That's right. If you're not letting us in, you should at least give us a reason, right? The big man's face was stern. We're just following the city lord's orders. How would we know the reason? Then call the city lord out. He's just a small city lord. Yet he wants to keep so many of us out of the city. Does he know how many people he's offended? The big man looked at the person coldly. Even we can't see the city lord. You want to see him? Dream on. How many people have you offended? Tell us, a light voice interrupted. The agitated person didn't seem to notice the change in the voice of the person who spoke. He opened his mouth and said, not just us but all the large families and powers on the continent, even the royal family. Before he could finish, someone shouted from the crowd, interrupting him. Xin Yaoguang. Xin Yaoguang. There was no need for any explanation. Just these 3 words were enough to make everyone's gaze focus on the young girl who had appeared out of nowhere. She was wearing a purple dress, which was different from what the girls on the continent wore. Hers looked more convenient for fighting, but the style was still gorgeous. There were tassels hanging from the waist, and the skirt was very elegant. When the breeze blew, the skirt would move. The girl's features were exquisite, and her skin was as white as jade. The corners of her mouth were slightly upturned, as if she was smiling, but also as if she was mocking them with disdain. This was the Shen Yaoguang who destroyed the Shen family, and killed most of its members in a single night. Qin Langyue examined Shisheng from head to toe. She looks completely fine. His cultivation seems to have increased. Shen Yaoguang, why are you here? She destroyed the entire Shen family. Who on the continent didn't look down on her? Why was she here? What does it have to do with you where I am? Shisheng almost rolled his eyes. Qin Langyue's face darkened. Jiang Mu immediately released his killing intent, looking like he was going to kill Shisheng. Chase them all out. Find those who entered the city and throw them out as well. Shisheng ignored Jiang Mu's killing intent and turned to instruct the burly man. The burly man was still in a daze. He actually saw the city lord, and he even knew her name, Xin Yaoguang. Why does the city lord's name sound so good? The burly man only regained his senses when he heard Shisheng's words. Yes, city lord. This subordinate will definitely do it well. Not only is the city lord powerful, she's also beautiful. Whoever marries the city lord will have a great fortune. The burly man was still blindly admiring her in his heart. What? She's the city lord. Someone in the crowd shouted. Do you know who she is? She's someone who slaughtered her own family, and you actually let her be the city lord. According to the rules of Four Corner City, the winner is king. The burly man's voice rang in everyone's ears. Who in Four Corner City hasn't had blood on their hands? What's the big deal about slaughtering an entire family? Many of Four Corner City's disciples who hadn't come out for training didn't know about this. However, those who did know only knew that the people of Four Corner City weren't to be trifled with. As for the details, only a few understood. They couldn't refute the burly man's words. But now, a person who everyone on the continent despised had actually locked them out of the city. No matter how they thought about it, it was humiliating. Thus, some people secretly wanted to make a move. Tipping and updating thanks to E, Pimple, and Soft Girl for their tipping. Chapter 200. When one person made a move, there was naturally a second person. The city gate was immediately thrown into chaos, and all kinds of spiritual lights were flying around. Shisheng stood a little inside and watched indifferently. Perhaps it was because Shisheng was the city lord and didn't care about anything, so it was convenient for them to do things. Moreover, she was such a beautiful girl, so the people of Four Corner City took the initiative to protect her. Those with power and status were all at the back. The people who came to Four Corner City were either the vanguard or some small forces, so they weren't a threat at all. The people of Four Corner City quickly suppressed the troublemakers and drove them all out of the city. City Lord, why did we drive them out? After closing the city gate, the burly spiritual supremacy from before came forward and asked Shisheng. Although it was satisfying to beat them up, it would be difficult to clean up the mess when their main force came. Shisheng's lips curled into a smile. Just when the man thought she was going to reveal some shocking secret, she only said lightly, I don't like them. Don't like them, so she drove them out? The new city lord was so capricious. Why are there so many people coming to the city recently? She hadn't been in Four Corner City recently, so when she came back, she found that the city was full of unfamiliar faces. Did they form a group to watch Four Corner City? The burly man was surprised. City Lord, don't you know? Know what? Did something big happen when I wasn't here? The burly man's mouth twitched. How could the city lord not know about such a big thing? Was she really the city lord? After organizing his words, the burly man said, There's something unusual going on in Sunset Forest. Outside, people are saying that a treasure has appeared. These people are all here for it. Treasure? What treasure? In a fantasy world, the appearance of something awesome would immediately cause a commotion and attack from all directions. Then the male and female leads would take the opportunity to make a fortune, and finally develop feelings for each other. It was the most important part of a fantasy plot. The burly man was embarrassed and scratched his head. How would I know? We'll have to wait until the treasure appears, or we go in to find out. But there are so many people here this time, I'm afraid it's not something simple. City Lord, should we also? The burly man didn't finish his sentence, but Shisheng understood. Should he get involved? Go ahead if you want. Why are you asking me? I don't care. Shisheng waved his hand. Guard the city gate, and throw out the people in the city. After that, Shisheng turned around and left. The burly man was speechless again. Why was there something wrong with the city lord style? When other people became city lords, which one of them didn't flaunt their prowess? She, on the other hand, didn't care about anything and was nowhere to be seen. City Lord, you will be usurped sooner or later like this. Sure enough, ever since the Shisheng ordered the city gates to be closed, more and more people came, and wave after wave of people came looking for trouble. However, it was not that easy to enter the city. Four Corner City was built on the outskirts of the setting sun forest. Naturally, it had a defensive array formation. Once the array formation was activated, these people would not be able to cause any trouble. Perhaps because there were too many people gathered, some magical beasts from the setting sun forest ran out. At night, there would be ghostly wails and wolf howls outside the city, making one's scalp tingle. City Lord, are you there? Outside the City Lord's mansion, The burly man from before shouted at the top of his lungs, looking slightly anxious. However, after shouting for a long time, there was no response from inside. Is the city lord not here? It shouldn't be. The city lord was still in the city when the array formation was activated. If she wanted to go out, we would know. Then why didn't she come out? Why don't we go in and take a look? Although this person's suggestion was a little rash, the burly man still agreed. Although the city lord's mansion was called a mansion, it was actually a courtyard house. They jumped into it. The courtyard was bare and nothing could be seen except for a room with light. The burly man knocked on the door, but there was still no response. After exchanging a few glances with the others, the burly man tried to push the door open. He found that the door was not locked, so he gently pushed it open. When he saw the room clearly, the burly man felt that he had entered the wrong room. Books were scattered all over the floor. Other than a bed, a table, and a chair, the rest of the room was filled with books. There was even a place to enter the room. He looked down and the corner of his mouth twitched again. What the hell was this? Erotic secrets. The secret history of the flower chamber. What kind of strange and eye-catching things was the city lord reading? Also, where did the city lord get so many books? What are you doing? The burly man quivered and turned around abruptly. He saw a black shadow standing on the courtyard wall. The black shadow jumped down from the courtyard wall and walked into the light. Only then did everyone see who it was. The burly man felt that his worldview was constantly being refreshed. City lord. Why did you climb over the wall? Was the door for decoration? I was too lazy to open the door, Shisheng replied. His gaze turned to the door that was pushed open. What are you doing? Too lazy to open the door, so you climbed over the wall? Asterisk flips table asterisk which one was more troublesome? Well, we saw the light in the room and thought that the city lord was in the room. However, no one responded to our calls, so we. The burly man explained. Shisheng stared at him for a few seconds. The burly man wanted to find a hole to hide in. Why are you looking for me? Shisheng walked towards the room. He kicked away the books that were blocking his way and walked in. The burly man and the others were speechless. The burly man didn't dare to follow him in. He stood at the door and said, "The people outside are working together to break the defensive array. They have many people and we don't know how long the array can last, so there were already people from the big families here. If they worked together to break the array wouldn't last long. They can't come in." Shisheng waved his hand. "Go back and sleep. Mind your own business." The burly man was speechless. This wasn't business, city lord. This concerned the life and death of Four Corner City. If those people entered the city, wouldn't they get even with them? However, Shisheng looked impatient. No matter how much the burly man said, Shisheng either didn't say a word or told him to go back. In the end, he slammed the door shut. The most willful city lord in the history of Four Corner City was online. Shisheng sat on a chair and flipped through a book casually. The title of the book was very normal, The Ancient Times. The words in the book were very small. The author of the book was probably a girl. The words were beautiful and there were illustrations from time to time. The illustrations were of magical beasts. Almost all the ancestors of magical beasts could be found in the book. The first half of the book recorded magical beasts. The second half recorded some unheard of medicinal herbs and forbidden techniques. Shisheng flipped to the last page. There were obvious tears. On the left side, there was a forbidden technique called red sleeve attraction. It was a very nice name. However, this forbidden technique was used on men. Only half of the forbidden technique was recorded. The rest had been torn away. According to the way it was recorded, the last page should be the solution to this forbidden technique. But now it had been torn away. Asterisk tips added. Thank you Pimple, and Soft Girl for your tips. Vote Cherub. Also, there's a Mid-Autumn Festival event at the top of the book review section. Remember to participate. Chapter 201. Red Sleeve Lure had a very melodramatic origin. To sum it up, it was a bloody case caused by a man. Once upon a time, there was a couple. The husband cheated on the wife one day, and the wife couldn't stop him. She was even tortured half to death by her husband and his mistress. Unwilling to give up, the wife researched for many years until she finally created a forbidden technique. That forbidden technique was called red sleeve lure. Once a man was afflicted with this forbidden technique, he had to drink a woman's blood to relieve himself. And that woman had to be the one who performed the forbidden technique, no one else. In the end, the husband sucked his mistress dry, but still died in the end. Since then, red sleeve lure had been passed down to deal with unfaithful men. But why was Bujingyan afflicted with red sleeve lure? Who did he betray? He didn't need a specific woman's blood either. As long as it was a woman, he could drink it to relieve himself. Shisheng felt like she was being splashed by buckets of dog blood. Shisheng put the book away. She'd searched for so long, but this was the only useful book she'd found, and the most important part had been torn out. She really wanted to kill someone. Because the city lord was unreliable, the burly man was filled with worry. But he soon discovered that his worries were unnecessary. The attackers under the city walls soon gave up. Because they were being attacked by enemies. They were using their spiritual energy on such a large scale that the magical beasts in Setting Sun Forest couldn't help but rush towards the food. They hadn't even entered Setting Sun Forest, but they'd already lost so many people. These people hated Four Corner City and Shin Yaoguang to the core. By the time everyone had arrived and entered Sunset Forest, the majority of the people, except for those who had arrived at the end, looked as if they had been ravaged excessively. Qin Langyue had met male supporting character N, the young master of a certain mercenary group, so she'd had a much better time than the others. The large group entered Setting Sun Forest in batches. Because they didn't know the exact location of the treasure, they all went in different directions. Qin Langyue had initially followed the mercenary group, but they'd been separated after encountering a wolf pack. Even Jiang Mu wasn't by her side. The one who followed her was Shisheng. Don't ask Shisheng why she was with the female lead. The female supporting character and the female lead were true love. If they weren't together, they'd be struck by lightning. Even if she managed to avoid Qin Langyue, she'd still run into all sorts of accidents. Give a thumbs up to the powerful plotline. At this moment, Shisheng looked rather relaxed while Qin Langyue was in a rather sorry state. There was a small stream between the two of them, its water gushing into the distance. Shisheng didn't move, so Qin Langyue didn't either. She just stared at her warily. Shisheng felt his eyes ache. He rolled his eyes and suddenly looked behind him. The forest receded. Qin Langyue heaved a sigh of relief as she watched her figure disappear into the bushes. Ever since she entered the forest, she had been constantly on the move. She didn't even have a chance to catch her breath. Meeting Shin Yaoguang here was beyond her expectations. She had a bad feeling about this woman, so her first reaction when she met her was to be on guard. Qin Langyue waited for a while to make sure the Shisheng was gone, then walked over to the stream to tidy herself up. The stream water was very clear. When she saw the water, she realized that she had not washed herself for many days. She walked upstream for a while. After making sure there was no one around, she took off her clothes and went into the stream to take a comfortable bath. Just as she was getting comfortable, a sound suddenly came from the forest opposite her. It was the rustling of leaves. She tensed up and reached out to pick up her clothes. Just as she touched them, a gale wolf leapt out of the forest. It had a majestic body, ferocious eyes and sharp fangs. After the first gale wolf leapt out, it was followed by a second, then a third. Qin Langyue froze in place. She had just experienced the might of these gale wolves. They lived in packs, moved very quickly, and were very united. They were extremely intelligent magical beasts. Qin Langyue didn't move, and neither did the pack of wolves. The wolf that leapt out first was obviously much larger than the rest. The other wolves also treated it with obvious respect. This was the king of the pack. The wolf king's green eyes moved, as if it didn't understand why the person it was chasing had changed. But humans were all shameless creatures. An ominous glint flashed in the wolf king's eyes. With a low growl, the surrounding wolves immediately pounced on Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue's heart was in her throat. As soon as the wolves moved, she grabbed her clothes and put them on, then jumped onto the shore and ran towards the forest. The wolf king roared in anger, and all the other wolves chased after her like lightning. There were no roads in Setting Sun Forest, so Qin Langyue was at a disadvantage as a human running through the forest. It didn't take long for her to be surrounded by the wolves. Qin Langyue's body was bare, so the cold wind blew into her body. Goosebumps covered her body, and she couldn't help but shiver when she was being stared at by so many wolves. Am I going to die here today? My contract beast had already fallen into a deep slumber to help me, so no matter how I call out to it, it's useless. As more and more wolves gathered, Qin Langyue gritted her teeth and took out her weapon to attack. I can't die here. Other transmigrators can do well, so why can't I? I can't die here. However, Qin Langyue underestimated the might of the Gale wolves. With so many of them, even if she killed them one by one, she'd still get tired. Qin Langyue's stamina gradually weakened. She had pills to recover her spiritual energy, but she didn't have any to recover her physical strength. The Wolf King saw an opportunity and pounced on her, sinking its jaws into her neck. Qin Langyue fell to the ground, her clothes falling apart to reveal her fair and delicate body. The Wolf King bit Qin Langyue viciously, and she fainted before she could retaliate. When she woke up again, she found herself lying naked on a stone bed. The pain from her lower body and the bruises on her body made Qin Langyue feel as if she'd been struck by lightning. I lost my virginity. And it's very likely a wolf at that? Qin Langyue felt disgusted just thinking about it, so she threw up beside the bed. I was actually done by a wolf. Qin Langyue felt like she was covered in filth. She wanted nothing more than to kill the Wolf King right now. After luring the wolves away, Shisheng followed the pack to watch the show. He saw the Wolf King originally planning to kill Qin Langyue, but when her fair body was revealed, it actually changed its mind and decided to just knock her unconscious and bring her back. Shisheng felt so stifled that he started scratching his head in anger. I told you to kill her, not to find a wife for you. What's the point of bringing her back? You're a wolf, don't you know that? Even if you're a Wolf King who can only transform, you're still a wolf. There's no good ending between humans and beasts. Shisheng almost couldn't resist taking out a small ball and blowing up the den of these stupid wolves. Asterisk, please recommend me. Please recommend me. Chapter 202. Before Bu Jingyan could let go of Shisheng grabbed his arm and tightened her grip. With a flip, he was pinned beneath her. Shisheng's fingers were still around his neck as he leaned over and looked down at her. He could see his own reflection in her eyes. Bu Jingyan, you've grown bolder, haven't you? Do you know what you're doing? You're acting like a pervert. Do you think I won't kill you? Bu Jingyan. This noble one didn't act like a pervert to anyone but you. You don't know how to be romantic at all. Look at me. What are you feeling guilty about? Shisheng forced Bu Jingyan to look at him. Bu Jingyan snorted unhappily. This noble one isn't feeling guilty. Shisheng resisted the urge to hack him to death and released him. However, he was still sitting on top of Bu Jingyan. Why are you here? Is there anywhere in this continent that this noble one can't go? Bu Jingyan replied coldly, but his eyes kept darting back and forth between Shisheng and Shisheng. She really does care about me. What a hypocrite. Shisheng rolled his eyes at him. Are you going to hell or not? Isn't this guy an otaku? Why does he keep running outside? What's the point of running? Can't he just obediently wait for this precious one to marry him? Bu Jingyan. Shisheng suddenly reached out and grabbed Bu Jingyan's collar. His other hand moved to Bu Jingyan's waist and quickly unbuckled his belt. Shisheng swiftly stripped off his outer red robes. Bu Jingyan wanted to save him, but it was too late. He could only watch as his beloved red robes were violently cut to pieces by Shisheng. Xinyaoguang, what did you do to the hallmaster? The enforcer's voice suddenly rang out from behind. He looked at the shredded robes on the ground, then at the lifeless body of his hallmaster. His mind was filled with images of Shisheng forcibly taking possession of his hallmaster. The anger in his chest rose rapidly. This witch actually dared to treat his hallmaster like this. This was simply unbearable. What could I have done to him? Shisheng looked at the enforcer in confusion. Firstly, she didn't hit him, and secondly, she didn't scold him. She only took off his clothes. Was there a need to be so agitated? She had been taken advantage of. What had she said? What a fuss. Shen Yaoguang, go back. Bu Jingyun stood up from the ground and stared coldly at the enforcer. Protector. Palace master, you can't treat them differently. Why was he so cold and aloof every time she saw him? He refused to accept it. He couldn't even compare to a woman he had only known for a few months. Due to Bu Jingyun's pressure, the enforcer had no choice but to return to the group with an expression that said, "My hall master has been defiled, and my hall master is siding with an outsider. I feel like I've fallen out of favor." Shisheng jumped back onto the tree. Bu Jingyun followed suit, but Shisheng did not chase him away. She did not mention a single word about what had just happened. It was as if this was a very normal thing to her. As Bu Jingyun's thoughts ran wild, the sky gradually darkened. When he looked at the lotus again at night, it emitted a lustrous light and was exceptionally beautiful. When the moon rose to the middle of the sky, the budding rainbow lotus bloomed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Roar! It's blooming, it's blooming! The voices of humans and magical beasts rang out at the same time. Black figures rushed from both sides of the lake to the center. The rainbow lotus bloomed for a very short period of time. Normally, it would only bloom for 5 minutes. If it was not plucked in 5 minutes, the petals of the rainbow lotus would wither and begin to bear fruit. What could one do in 5 minutes? One could eat a bowl of instant noodles in 5 minutes, play a round of games, and have intimate contact with the five-fingered girl once. It seemed like a very long time, and there was plenty of time. But at this moment, it seemed like this amount of time was simply not enough. Humans did not want magical beasts to obtain it, and magical beasts naturally did not want humans to obtain it either. Moreover, the magical beast army had wings and could fly. Although humans could fly as spirit emperors, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. It was not as useful as magical beasts. They would be able to slap you down with 2 claws. You want the rainbow lotus? Shisheng, who was enjoying the show, suddenly turned to Bu Jingyun and asked. She saw the people from 9 Silences Hall trying to take advantage of the situation and snatch the rainbow lotus. No. Bu Jingyun subconsciously shook his head, but before he could finish, he immediately turned around and said, "Yes." "What's so good about that thing?" Shisheng muttered with a frown, then took out his iron sword and said, "Wait here, I'll snatch it back for you." Bu Jingyun. "Wait, shouldn't I be the one saying that?" "Wait." Shisheng did not listen to him at all, and immediately dashed out. Shisheng was very fast. Taking advantage of the fact that those people were busy dealing with the magical beasts, he reached the rainbow lotus. She was just about to reach out and pluck it when a pair of white claws suddenly appeared beside her, grabbing the rainbow lotus and uprooting it. The sound of splashing water attracted everyone's attention, be it humans or magical beasts. Shisheng looked in the direction of the claws, his temples throbbing uncontrollably. "Female lead Sama, you really are all-pervasive." Qin Langyue gave Shisheng a smug look, then scurried towards the shore. Then a strange phenomenon occurred. Several silver tentacles suddenly shot out from the calm surface of the water, wrapping around Qin Langyue's calves and pulling her back. A treasure like this would definitely have something protecting it, either an abnormally ferocious magical beast or some kind of plant. At this moment, the silver tentacles that stretched out looked more like a plant. Shisheng chopped off the tentacles that were reaching for him, then dashed towards Qin Langyue, seizing the opportunity to snatch the rainbow lotus from her. A cold smile appeared on Qin Langyue's face, and the rainbow lotus suddenly disappeared. Several more tentacles shot out from the water, reaching for Shisheng like lightning. Shisheng was forced to put some distance between himself and Qin Langyue. At this moment, the surface of the water was filled with silver tentacles. Magical beasts immediately retreated from the tentacles' attack range, but those who were slower were not so lucky and were directly dragged into the water. With a few splashes, black shadows spread across the surface of the water, filling the air with the stench of blood. Qin Langyue was entangled by the tentacles. Just as she was about to be dragged into the water, a large snake flew over from the shore and bit down on the tentacles, causing them to shrink back into the water in pain. The large snake coiled its tail around Qin Langyue, knocking aside the tentacles that were reaching for it, then quickly scuttled back to the shore. Shisheng chopped off a few tentacles and was one step behind Qin Langyue. In the end, as soon as she arrived, she heard Qin Langyue's voice. Shen Yaoguang stole it. The tentacles were still waving wildly on the surface of the lake. Those who were caught screamed for help, but they would be dragged back into the lake in the next second. No one could save them. The dense mass of tentacles made it impossible to see what was happening in the middle. The ones closest to the Rainbow Lotus just now were Shisheng and Qin Langyue. Now that the Rainbow Lotus had disappeared, there were only two possibilities. If it wasn't on Qin Langyue, then it was on her. Qin Langyue had framed her, so she was definitely going to take the blame. Who told me to be a professional villain? What else could I do other than take the blame? Female lead, you're really something. Asterisk, please don't take the blame. Please vote, 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 Cherub. Please remember to participate in the Mid-Autumn Festival. Chapter 203. Thus, the moment Shisheng landed on the ground, a group of people quickly surrounded him. Shen Yaoguang, hand over the Rainbow Lotus. Shisheng swung his iron sword as he looked at Qin Langyue, who was standing in the middle of the crowd and being hugged by a handsome man with a slightly sinister aura. His heart raced wildly. The Snake King actually bowed down to the female lead. This is simply a disgrace to the world of magical beasts. Shisheng didn't have the slightest desire to explain himself. These people were all acting like, I'm not listening to you. I'm not listening to you. You're lying to me. What's the point of explaining? Thus, he gave the female lead a meaningful look, then looked at the people around him. He dragged out his voice and asked in a strange tone, You want the Rainbow Lotus? Nonsense, hand over the Rainbow Lotus. It's not impossible. Shisheng ignored that person, and his eyes curved into crescents. How about exchanging it with Qin Langyue? Qin Langyue was still feeling pleased with herself, but when she heard Shisheng's words, her heart skipped a beat as a bad premonition arose in her heart. Qin Langyue? What do you want her for? Someone asked in confusion. These two don't seem to have any grudges. That's none of your business. You guys have time to think it over. Give me Qin Langyue in exchange for the Rainbow Lotus, or I'll destroy it. Shisheng spoke with conviction, as if the Rainbow Lotus was really in her hands. Don't even think about it. I can destroy it much faster than you can. Shisheng's words dispelled the thoughts of those who wanted to snatch the Rainbow Lotus. Shen Yaoguang was still strong. If she really wanted to destroy the Rainbow Lotus, they definitely wouldn't be able to stop her. How do we know the Rainbow Lotus is really in your hands? Show it to us, some idiot suddenly said. Shisheng laughed out loud. Are you guys here to make fun of me? Weren't you the ones who said the Rainbow Lotus was in my hands? Are you kidding me, or are you kidding yourselves? Has your IQ been fed to the dogs? Shisheng smiled faintly. Since you suspect I don't have the Rainbow Lotus, then let me go. Shen Yaoguang, stop trying to confuse us. The Rainbow Lotus is definitely on her. The first sentence was directed at Shisheng, while the second sentence was directed at the others. The person who asked such a stupid question was beaten twice by the people beside him. That person didn't dare to make a sound. The scene quieted down, and only the sound of water could be heard from the distant lake. The tentacles seemed to be unable to leave the water. They also had a length, and could only reach a distance of 1 or 2 meters from the shore. Therefore, at this moment, those tentacles were like crazily growing hair, dancing wildly on the surface of the lake, looking rather strange. The demonic beast on the other side seemed to be afraid of these tentacles. It didn't come over and just watched. Everyone looked at each other for a few seconds, then quickly started discussing amongst themselves. However, Qin Langyue had already been detained, so the outcome was obvious. 1 petal of the Rainbow Lotus was equivalent to a martial sage. It was worth it to exchange a woman for it. Those people pretended to discuss amongst themselves for a while before finally looking at Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue tried her best to remain calm, but the fury in her eyes still poured out. She wanted to scheme against Shen Yaoguang, but she didn't expect Shen Yaoguang to scheme against her instead. However, she couldn't say that she didn't have the Rainbow Lotus on her. She had no choice but to fight her way out. Who dares to touch my woman? The Snake King suddenly shielded Shen Yaoguang behind him, his tone tyrannical. The Snake King, who could transform, had a cultivation that was at least on par with a human martial sage. When the pressure from his body swept out, those with lower cultivations felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on them. Their legs went weak, and they wanted to kneel down. However, there were quite a few martial sages here. If they really fought, the Snake King wouldn't be their match. Therefore, these people weren't scared off by the Snake King. Instead, they glared at Qin Langyue with disgust. You're actually together with a demonic beast? Qin Langyue, I didn't know you had such a heavy taste. Even if he can transform, he's still a demonic beast. Qin Langyue's killing intent overflowed as she listened to those people speak more and more outrageously. I was forced to be with the Snake King. That's right, it's all Shen Yaoguang's fault. She'd asked the Snake King, and he'd said that someone lured him out, which was why he went to fight with the Wolf King. Coupled with her encounter with the Wolf King, it was obvious that Shen Yaoguang had set her up. She looked at Shi Sheng with eyes filled with cold light. Shi Sheng's lips curled up in response to her with an infuriating smile. That smile was extremely dazzling in Qin Langyue's eyes, as if mocking her stupidity. Are you guys done? Motherfucker, don't you know that villains die from talking too much? Look at the female lead's eyes. Believe it or not, when her cheek comes online, she'll beat all of you up. A bunch of idiots. Their expressions changed, but no one dared to retort Shi Sheng. Someone began to attack the Snake King, luring him to the side. Qin Langyue was surrounded by several people. Without her cheat, she had nothing to fear other than her own strength. This was the downside of a growth-type female lead. If you really met a villain who didn't follow the script, they could kill you in a matter of minutes. How could they let you be so arrogant until the end? The Snake King and Qin Langyue were captured one after the other and brought to Shi Sheng. Cripple her cultivation. Shi Sheng pointed at a random person. Shen Yaoguang, you didn't say that just now. Shi Sheng shrugged nonchalantly. Then can I add it now? Do you want the rainbow lotus or not? That person glared at Shi Sheng, then ordered someone to cripple Qin Langyue's cultivation. Shen Yaoguang, I have no enmity with you. Why are you doing this to me? Qin Langyue was really scared now. She knew what she would face after her cultivation was crippled. So she had to stall for time. Wait for her contracted beast to wake up. Shi Sheng didn't even bat an eyelid. He tapped the air with his finger and urged, hurry up, can you give birth to a baby if you dawdle? That person glared at Shi Sheng angrily, but still sped up and walked to Qin Langyue's side. Shen Yaoguang, even if I'm going to die, at least explain why you're targeting me. Qin Langyue cried out anxiously. I didn't ask you to die, so what's there to be confused about? Don't make it sound so serious. Shi Sheng smiled, then turned his head, his expression savage again. Why aren't you doing anything? Don't you know how to cripple someone's cultivation? Don't make it sound so serious. Crippling someone's cultivation is worse than death, okay? This woman actually said it wasn't serious. Qin Langyue wanted to say something, but that person had already placed his palm on top of her head. A surge of spiritual energy entered her body through her Baihui acupoint. The sudden surge of spiritual energy from the outside world wreaked havoc in her body, violently destroying her meridians. The sound of her meridians breaking rang in her ears, and a wave of pain washed over her. Qin Langyue couldn't bear the pain and screamed in agony. Her voice was exceptionally miserable, causing one's scalp to go numb. Asterisk tipping. Asking for votes, touch you guys. Chapter 204. Enough. Shen Yaoguang, hand over the rainbow lotus. As soon as the person who crippled Qin Langyue stopped, someone immediately shouted at Shi Sheng. Now that Qin Langyue's cultivation had been crippled, the group of people who wanted the rainbow lotus immediately grew excited. Their gazes towards Shi Sheng became scorching hot. A martial sage, how tempting. Shi Sheng's lips curled into a mocking smile. I don't have the rainbow lotus. She didn't admit that she had the stupid rainbow lotus just now. Were these people's brains eaten by pigs? Qin Langyue said she had it, so it's really with her. Idiots. Shen Yaoguang, what do you mean by this? Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. Don't stall for time. We have so many people here. Even if you want to renege on your debt, we'll see if you have the strength to do so. Don't you understand? I said, I don't have the rainbow lotus. Shisheng spoke very slowly so that everyone present could hear him. We've already fulfilled your request. Xin Yaoguang, don't even think about reneging on your debt. Hand over the rainbow lotus, or else you'll end up like her. A tall man pointed at Qin Langyue with a vicious expression. Xin Yaoguang, don't test our patience. Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. Hurry up and hand it over. Hurry up. One by one they shouted very happily. Shisheng ignored them and walked over to Qin Langyue's side. The people there were looking at her nervously, ready to attack at any moment. Shisheng didn't mind. He squatted down and grabbed Qin Langyue's wrist. Yaoguang. Qin Langyue raised her head with great difficulty. Her eyes were bloodshot, making her look a little terrifying. She was gnashing her teeth so ferociously that she looked like a malicious spirit. She really crippled my cultivation. I'm going to kill her. Shisheng's fingertips caressed her wrist. When he heard Qin Langyue call out to him, he turned to look at her. I won't let you off. Qin Langyue spat out these words through gritted teeth. Oh! Shisheng retracted his gaze. Qin Langyue's expression immediately changed. You, Shen. Yaoguang, why will you? What? What are you trying to do? Qin Langyue wanted to break free, but with her current strength, she was no match for Shisheng. Take some interest. Daring to frame me. Do you think I'm a saint? Do you think I'm going to let it go? No. A trace of fear finally appeared in Qin Langyue's eyes. She fumbled around her wrist, clearly looking for a spatial bracelet. How did she know about this? She had never used it in front of anyone, nor had she told anyone about it. How would she know? Xin Yaoguang, what are you playing at? Hurry up and hand over the rainbow lotus. The person on the other side was getting impatient. Shisheng didn't answer him. He pinched an invisible hard object with his fingertips and injected Reiki into it. Qin Langyue was currently heavily injured and in her weakest state, so it would be easy for her to erase the contract between the bracelet and Qin Langyue. Sure enough, a simple and unadorned bracelet soon appeared on Qin Langyue's wrist. Don't! Shisheng took off the bracelet. This world was set to be an uninhabited spatial bracelet, so anyone could enter it. After finding the rainbow lotus, Shisheng returned the bracelet to Qin Langyue. Qin Langyue found a box for the rainbow lotus, saving Shisheng the trouble of finding something to store it in. Once she got the rainbow lotus, she dashed off into the distance. Her movements were so sudden and swift that the people on the other side didn't even have time to react. Xin Yaoguang. The group of people behind her yelled and chased after her, but they didn't realize that Shisheng was actually leading them towards the magical beasts. By the time they realized, it was already too late. Magical beasts didn't have a good impression of humans. Rushing over like this was undoubtedly a form of provocation. So how could the magical beasts let them do as they pleased? After shaking off the group of people, Shisheng circled back to where Bu Jingyan was. Bu Jingyan and the people from Nine Silences Hall were all there. When they saw Shisheng coming over, they all went on guard. Shisheng tossed the box containing the rainbow lotus to Bu Jingyan, his face full of disdain. Here. I really don't know what you're doing with this, Mary Sue. Bu Jingyan held the box, the corner of his mouth twitching. She really managed to snatch it from so many people? That look of disdain on his face would make the people outside go crazy with anger. What's a Mary Sue? I don't know, but it sounds really high and mighty. Also, I sent people to snatch the rainbow lotus because I saw her guarding this place. I thought she wanted it, so I wanted to snatch it and give it to her. In the end, she wasn't guarding this place for the rainbow lotus at all. How am I supposed to give it to her now? Bu Jingyan could only silently accept the box. The enforcer was also a little dumbfounded. This seductress doesn't seem to treat the hallmaster that badly. She can even snatch something like this and give it to the hallmaster. Where are we going now? Bu Jingyan put the rainbow lotus away, then turned to ask Shisheng. Shisheng smoothed out his wrinkled robes, his gaze calm as he stared into the depths of the forest. To fight. Bu Jingyan. Can't you do anything else besides fight? So violent. No wonder no one wants her. She wants to force a marriage, humph. Only I'm kind enough to allow her to force a marriage. If it were anyone else, they would have beaten her to death long ago. Shisheng stirred up a mess, but he calmly withdrew himself and headed deeper into the forest. Bu Jingyan didn't bring his troops, only the enforcer. The deeper they went, the higher the level of the demonic beasts they encountered. The enforcer was a little worried. Hallmaster, it's not safe for us to continue like this. For the past few days, he'd watched that woman wander aimlessly forward. Although he didn't have to do anything when encountering demonic beasts, the demonic beasts they encountered today would be difficult to deal with. He didn't know what was wrong with the Hallmaster. Why did he insist on following her? She won't let anything happen to me. Bu Jingyan looked at the slender figure in front of him, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. If this was a girl saying this, it wouldn't be a problem at all. But now it was a man saying it, and it was the wise and mighty Hallmaster in his heart. The enforcer could feel the lofty image of the Hallmaster crumbling in his heart. Hallmaster, you're not acting right. You should go back first. Ah. Were they talking about this just now? How can I do that? The enforcer immediately shook his head. I must stay by your side. As an enforcer, his job was to protect the Hallmaster. Bu Jingyan glanced at him coldly, then said coldly, I don't want to repeat myself a third time. Go back. The enforcer. How can I be at ease leaving you in the hands of such a demonic woman? Bu Jingyan's gaze turned even colder. The enforcer immediately cowered and said sullenly, yes. Bu Jingyan caught up with Shisheng in a few steps, and the two figures gradually disappeared, swallowed up by the tall weeds. The enforcer scratched his head. What about the Hallmaster's safety? This is so urgent. In the end, the enforcer quietly followed. In any case, he didn't feel safe leaving the Hallmaster alone with that demonic woman. Shen Yaoguang only knew how to bully the Hallmaster. Asterisk gift plus update, please vote. Chapter 205. Shisheng didn't continue forward. Instead, he took a detour and arrived at a cliff. On the opposite side of the cliff, there was a bright red plant. Its rhizome was very delicate, with only 2 leaves. However, there was a very large flower blooming on it. It swayed and bloomed brilliantly, making people wonder if the delicate rhizome could bear its weight. Bu Jingyan's expression changed when he saw the plant. His gaze on Shisheng deepened. Shisheng was about to go over when Bu Jingyan pulled her back. Placing his palm on her waist, he pulled her into his embrace. The two were so close that they could hear each other's heartbeats. Are you crazy? Shisheng glared at him. Let go. Bu Jingyan pursed his lips and lowered his voice. You. Where did you find out about this? What do you mean, where did I find out about this? Shisheng rolled his eyes. Jieyin flower. What does that have to do with you? Shisheng frowned. Shen Yaoguang. Bu Jingyan called out to her in a low voice, a complicated look in his eyes. You know what I'm talking about. Couldn't she just tell him the truth? The jieyin flower was one of the ingredients to remove the temptation of red sleeves. He didn't believe that she'd found it by coincidence. Shisheng pressed his hands against Bu Jingyan's chest and leaned back slightly. It's not that you haven't found a way to remove the seal on your body after all these years. You just haven't found what you need. I've already given you the medicine king cauldron, and I'll find the rest for you. You just need to marry me after the seal is removed. Even if a man could suppress the effects of the temptation of red sleeves with fresh blood, he wouldn't live for long. She didn't know how Bu Jingyan had managed to live for so long, but the price he'd paid for it was definitely not simple. Bu Jingyan stared blankly at the girl in his arms. She spoke so matter-of-factly and confidently. What right did she have? But damn it, he liked this side of her. Bu Jingyan's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly lowered his head and pressed his warm lips against Shisheng's. Shisheng's first reaction was to evade, but Bu Jingyan's strength had suddenly increased, as if he had eaten Popeye's spinach. He couldn't break free from Bu Jingyan's grip. He almost suppressed his Shisheng and kissed her for a while. Just as Shisheng was about to take out his iron sword to slash him, Fu Ling let go of Shisheng as if he had a good idea. Shisheng slapped him on the head. Bu Jingyan, are you addicted to acting like a pervert? That motherf asterisk Kerr kissed her whenever he didn't like it. Kiss your grandpa. Humph. Hey, you kissed and I didn't even settle the score with you. You still have the nerve to be so arrogant. Turn your face around. F asterisk CK, you're still running. The two of them messed around for a while before Shisheng went to pick the jiayin flower. Bu Jingyan didn't want to go to the toilet at first, but Shisheng slapped him to the ground. The jiayin flower wasn't precious, but it was very rare. It grew on cliffs, so it was basically impossible to buy this kind of jiayin flower, which was useless to ordinary people. Since it wasn't precious, it meant that it wasn't guarded by any magical beasts. Shisheng easily obtained the jiayin flower. However, just as she was about to turn back, several black figures suddenly rushed out from the bottom of the cliff. They were huge and covered in black feathers. With a flap of their wings, they created a strong wind that almost knocked Shisheng off his iron sword. Shisheng steadied himself, and only then did he get a good look at them. They were black eagles. Black eagles were a type of magical beast, but they were very large. With a wingspan of more than 10 meters, they could blot out the sun. 4 black eagles circled Shisheng, and 2 of them swooped down ferociously toward her, while the other 2 rushed toward Bu Jingyan. Black eagles were tough creatures and they could fly. They were much more difficult to deal with than those on the ground. When the enforcer saw the black eagles rushing over, he immediately jumped out to protect Bu Jingyan behind him. The black eagles used their wings to create a strong wind, and then took the opportunity to attack. The 2 of them even knew how to cooperate. Even Shisheng was a little flustered by these creatures. He could only dodge, and couldn't attack. The enforcer had to protect Bu Jingyan, and he was soon wounded. He was sent flying by one of the black eagles, but the other one suddenly swooped toward Bu Jingyan. Its sharp claws grabbed Bu Jingyan's shoulder, and with a flap of its wings it flew into the air. Hall Master! The enforcer's cry of surprise attracted Shisheng's attention. At the edge of the cliff, Bu Jingyan was caught by a black eagle and lifted into the air. Shisheng frowned. This guy had always been a good-for-nothing. Even now he didn't fight back. The enforcer waved away the black eagle that had been pestering him, and rushed toward the black eagle that had caught Bu Jingyan, saving him. Hall Master! The enforcer's face was full of anxiety. Bu Jingyan's face was pale, and he was on the verge of collapsing. The enforcer suddenly realized that something was wrong. He looked at Bu Jingyan's back, and saw that it was a bloody mess. Hall Master! How did he get so badly injured? The enforcer didn't have time to think about it. The black eagles in the sky started attacking again. He carried Bu Jingyan and dashed toward the forest in the distance. The terrain here was open and suitable for the black eagles to attack. Once they entered the forest, it wouldn't be so easy. Shisheng followed closely behind. These things were too fast. She couldn't even throw a small ball, let alone hit them. It was so infuriating. Once they entered the forest, the black eagles made a lot of noise in the canopy. However, the trees were too dense, and they couldn't see their target. After a while, they stopped attacking. The enforcer took Bu Jingyan to hide under a large tree. Shisheng stood a little further away from them. Let's go. Shisheng watched the black eagles fly away, before he walked up to Bu Jingyan. What happened to him? The enforcer glared at Shisheng. You still have the nerve to ask? If it weren't for you, Hall Master wouldn't have been injured. Shisheng. What are you talking about? Who knew that he was such a good-for-nothing? He's the villain, okay? Didn't you say that he was injured? Is his injury still not healed? It's all your fault, the enforcer continued. Ever since he met you, Hall Master has been plagued with bad luck. Xin Yaoguang, you're a jinx. The enforcer was also furious. In the past, Hall Master never left Nine Silences Hall. How could he have encountered such things? Even if their Hall Master was a good-for-nothing, he was still a high and mighty Hall Master that they were willing to serve. It was only later that Shisheng found out that Bu Jingyan was basically a good-for-nothing if he didn't suck human souls. The first time they met, he sucked the souls out of the 2 corpses. However, every time he sucked human souls, the consequences would be even more painful. Therefore, the people of Nine Silences Hall had always been on guard against Bu Jingyan from sucking human souls. The injury he mentioned before was also the consequence of sucking human souls. As for this damned setting, Shisheng just wanted to chuckle and curse the author's entire family. He's the villain, hey? What's the point of giving him such a damned skill? This weak and delicate villain. Damn. Asterisk pleading for votes. La 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 la. Are you guys really not going to vote for me after seeing me roll around and act cute? Chapter 206. Bu Jingyun's body was really weak. Just a few scratches and he'd fainted for half a day. Although the enforcer had insulted Shisheng, he didn't restrict her movements at all. Although he hadn't heard their conversation, he'd seen the Jieyin flower. That was what the hall master wanted them to find. This woman's words are too harsh. The two of them brought Bu Jingyun out of Setting Sun Forest. By the time they reached Four Corner City, Bu Jingyun's injuries had more or less healed. After those people retreated, Four Corner City was attacked in retaliation. Fortunately, the defensive formation was strong enough, and those people weren't united enough, so they left on bad terms. Qin Langyue was the reason they weren't united. Shisheng had forcefully revealed her space bracelet. Anything that belonged to the female lead was bound to be rare. Space items in the 9 provinces were the rarest of the rarest, so those people definitely wouldn't let go of her space bracelet. The Rainbow Lotus was already gone, so if they couldn't even get a space bracelet, wouldn't their trip have been in vain? For the sake of the space bracelet, another round of fighting ensued. Qin Langyue's contracted beast woke up and ran away with her, taking with it Jiang Mu, who was still protecting her despite knowing her cultivation was crippled. Langyue, eat something. Jiang Mu placed some fruits beside Qin Langyue, a hint of worry in his cold and hard expression. Qin Langyue's eyes were empty as she lay on the ground, replying mechanically, "No. If you don't eat, your body won't be able to take it." Qin Langyue suddenly sat up and yelled hysterically, "I said I won't eat. I won't eat. Don't you understand? Scram. I don't want to see you." Jiang Mu was stunned by her yelling. After a while he said, "But, scram. Scram." Qin Langyue pushed Jiang Mu away. Scram. Scram. The worry in Jiang Mu's eyes deepened, but in order not to agitate Qin Langyue, he still retreated. As soon as Jiang Mu left, Qin Langyue covered her face and started sobbing. Without her cultivation, she was no different from a cripple. Her mood was unpredictable. Even though she knew Jiang Mu was doing this for her own good, she still couldn't help but throw tantrums. "Master, there's still a chance to recover your strength." Jiang Mu's contracted beast's voice slowly rang in her mind. Qin Langyue abruptly raised her head, her bloodshot eyes filled with malevolence. What method? She wanted to recover her cultivation and take revenge on Shen Yaoguang. As an assassin in her past life, Qin Langyue's temperament had always been more resolute than the average person's. However, no matter how resolute a person's temperament was, when faced with a series of setbacks, they would become so weak that they couldn't even withstand a single blow. The contracted beast fell silent for a while. Qin Langyue urged him with a sinister look in her eyes. "Tell me, what's the plan?" "I don't want to be a cripple. Master, do you really want to recover? Even if you have to lose something?" The contract beast didn't answer the question, but asked in a low voice. When it contracted with her, she was clearly not such a person. Now its master made it a little afraid. "Yes, I want to recover. I don't care what I lose," Qin Langyue replied quickly. She wanted to take revenge on Shen Yaoguang. After a long while, the contract beast replied, "Yes, I will definitely help master recover." Qin Langyue was impatient. She kept asking him, but her contract beast didn't say anything. He just told her to wait patiently. That night, Qin Langyue had a dream. In her dream, there was a boy looking at her with a face full of sorrow. His gaze made her feel extremely uncomfortable, as if she had done something wrong to him. She woke up with a start. Light shone in from outside. She covered her face with her hands, but her rough skin gave her a fright. She touched her face a few times in a panic. Her smooth skin was gone, replaced by deep wrinkles. She raised her hands in front of her. Her tender fingers were now as withered as tree branches, covered with wrinkles that resembled tree bark. How could this be? No, no, this must be a dream. Qin Langyue comforted herself, then lay back down and closed her eyes. This must be a dream. A dream. Ah! A mournful scream resounded through the night. Jiang Mu, who was guarding outside, immediately rushed in. Langyue, what's wrong? Qin Langyue hugged her head and mumbled. Don't come here. Get out, Langyue. How could Jiang Mu be at ease? He walked over and grabbed Qin Langyue, trying to lift her head. Langyue, don't be afraid. I'll protect you from now on. You still have me. No, go away, don't touch me, don't. No one will like me when I'm like this. They're all liars. Listen to me, I really... Jiang Mu's voice trailed off. His body stiffened, the disbelief on his face concealed by the darkness. His body slowly fell to the ground, gurgling sounds coming from his throat, but no words came out. Qin Langyue was also shocked. After a long while, she raised her hands. Her cultivation has recovered? And it's even stronger than before. My cultivation has recovered. It's recovered. Ha ha ha, it's recovered. Qin Langyue seemed to have gone mad. She didn't even look at Jiang Mu, who was lying on the ground, gradually losing his breath. But soon, Qin Langyue discovered that even though she had recovered her cultivation, the skin on her face and hands was still the same. She scratched at the wrinkles with all her might, causing blood to flow out. How can this be? I've clearly recovered my cultivation, so why is it still like this? That's right. My contracted beast. He's the one who helped me recover my cultivation, so he must know what happened to me. Qin Langyue called out to her contracted beast in her heart, but no matter how much she called out, no one answered her. She couldn't even feel the connection between her and her contracted beast. Even though her contracted beast had fallen into a deep slumber, she could still feel the connection between them. Although she was puzzled, she quickly pushed it to the back of her mind. Qin Langyue had sex with the Snake King before, so she was pregnant with his child. With her cultivation crippled, the child had no spiritual energy to nourish it, so it could only absorb the nutrients from her body. Her contracted beast had gathered all of his energy to help Qin Langyue recover her cultivation. His energy was too pure, so the child couldn't bear it. Thus, it had desperately absorbed the nutrients from Qin Langyue's body to protect itself and provide the nutrients it needed in the future. Thus, even though Qin Langyue had recovered her cultivation, she couldn't recover her appearance. Qin Langyue tried many methods, but none of them worked. In the end, she could only wrap herself in a black robe and cover herself up tightly. The strange gazes and whispers outside made Qin Langyue feel very uncomfortable. Sometimes, she even wanted to kill those people. Instead of seeking revenge on Shisheng, she returned to Nine States Academy to look for Zhongxi. She wanted to become even stronger. If she could obtain the Medicine King's cauldron, that would be even better. Unfortunately, she hadn't seen that man since that time at the Shun residence, so she didn't know who he was. Pleading for votes. Chapter 207. Shisheng naturally didn't know about Qin Langyue's situation. She was also in a lot of trouble right now. People from the mainland knew that she had returned to the city, but they still didn't give up and wanted to snatch the Rainbow Lotus. Four Corner City couldn't be locked up forever, so every once in a while, people would come looking for death. For you. Bu Jingyan, dressed in red again, passed the box containing the Rainbow Lotus to her. Why are you giving it to me? She didn't need this, Mary Sue. Since I'm giving it to you, take it. Shisheng. This is for me, BBB, okay? Why are you giving it back to me now? Bu Jingyan snorted, then placed the box beside Shisheng and turned to leave. Shisheng's mouth twitched. This guy is getting more and more arrogant. Why didn't I have the Black Eagle scratch him to death back then? Shisheng glanced at the Rainbow Lotus, his eyes curving into a sinister smile. Don't you want the Rainbow Lotus? I'll give it to you. Four Corner City had been very busy recently. What was their strange city lord playing at? She was actually inviting all the major powers of the mainland to a banquet. Putting aside whether or not those people would come, just based on the fact that Four Corner City had locked those people outside last time. If they really came, Wouldn't they use their power to avenge private grudges and settle the score together? They couldn't understand their city lord's train of thought at all. Even Bu Jingyan couldn't figure it out, let alone these commoners. Why did she provoke these people again for no reason? Then Bu Jingyan saw the invitation she had sent out. Aside from the names of the invitees, there was only one line on the invitation. If you want the Rainbow Lotus, come to Four Corner City. He couldn't understand her train of thought at all. Those who received the invitation didn't understand either, but the allure of the Rainbow Lotus made them willingly jump into it even though they knew it was a trap. Everyone knew that there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. After a few months, Four Corner City was once again bustling with activity. The streets and alleys were packed with people. It was very crowded, and fights were happening every minute. Qin Langyue was wrapped in a black robe, her figure slightly bloated. She entered the city with Zhongxi, her face covered by a black veil filled with twisted hatred. Don't worry, you'll recover once we get the Rainbow Lotus. Zhongxi patted Qin Langyue's shoulder in consolation. Thank you, mentor. Qin Langyue replied in a low voice. Zhongxi sighed. The disciple he thought highly of had actually ended up like this. Qin Langyue's gaze fell on her slightly swollen belly, her eyes filled with malevolent hatred. If Zhongxi had not said that she could not abort the child, she really wanted to abort it. She didn't know if she was pregnant with the Snake Kings or the Wolf Kings, but no matter which one it was humiliating. She had even become like this because of this humiliation. How could they not hate him? Fortunately, she still had a chance. As long as she obtained the Rainbow Lotus, she would be able to regain her youth and beauty. The city lord is coming. A commotion suddenly broke out in the crowd, pushing Qin Langyue to the side. If it weren't for Zhongxi reaching out to support her, she would have been knocked to the ground. The crowd parted to form a path for the purple-robed girl and the red-robed man to enter from the city gates. What a perfect couple! When Qin Langyue saw Shisheng, a thick murderous aura surged from her body. Fortunately, there were many people in the city who wanted to kill Shisheng, so her murderous aura didn't seem that obvious. Zhongxi pulled Qin Langyue back and shook his head slightly, telling her not to be rash. Qin Langyue took a deep breath. Xin Yaoguang, I'll let you live a little longer. Her gaze fell on the man walking side by side with Shisheng, and her pupils constricted. It's him. The man who owns the Medicine King's cauldron. On the day stated on the invitation, everyone arrived early and took their own seats. The most conspicuous ones were Qin Langyue, who was wrapped in a black robe, and a masked man. The man had a powerful aura around him, and his gaze was sharp. The area around him was empty, with not a single person in sight. This was a square building, and everyone was gathered at the bottom. Shisheng appeared on the second floor with a box in his arms. He greeted everyone with a satisfied expression. Hi, long time no see. There was a strange silence below. The first to break the silence was a tall man with a full beard. Xin Yaoguang, what kind of tricks are you playing? His voice was rough, and the entire building seemed to tremble. Shisheng leaned against the railing on the second floor, and looked at the bearded man with a calm gaze. I'm still the lord of a city. What do you think you're doing by calling me Xin Yaoguang? I'm already giving you face by calling you Xin Yaoguang. Do you know what the people outside call you? The bearded man was instantly enraged. A thin man beside him immediately pulled him back, shrewdness written all over his face. Monkey spirit was the best word to describe him. He comforted the bearded man with a few words, then cupped his hands and nodded at Shisheng. City Lord Shen, please don't bicker with a boor like him. We were invited here by you. So you're the host and we're guests. Please bear with us. So you're saying that I can't talk back when he insults me, and I can't fight back when he hits me? Shisheng raised his brows. So what if I'm the host? Did I force them to come here? The monkey spirit was at a loss for words. That wasn't what he meant. City Lord Shen, let's not beat around the bush. We're all here for the Rainbow Lotus. What do you think we should do in order for you to give it to us? Auction it off or what? Someone couldn't wait any longer and asked. Shisheng placed the box on the railing. Everyone's eyes were glued to the box in Shisheng's hands. The atmosphere in the entire place became tense. and there was an undercurrent in the air. Shisheng opened the box, and a majestic spiritual energy poured out, making everyone feel comfortable. The greedy and covetous gazes became blatant, so hot that it seemed like they could set the air on fire. The people below were getting restless. I called you guys here. Shisheng dragged out his words, then took out the rainbow lotus. When he left the box, the rainbow lotus color dimmed a bit. Don't take it out, someone immediately shouted. It'll lose its effect if you take it out. Half of the rainbow lotus was in the box, while the other half was exposed to the air. Shisheng glanced at the man, then continued slowly. I called you guys here to watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus, so you won't keep thinking about me. What? Everyone's eyes widened. They didn't seem to understand what he was saying. Was he speaking human language? Watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus? Then they watched as Shisheng took out the entire rainbow lotus and exposed it to the air. Shen Yaoguang. Qin Lung Yue's shrill roar pulled everyone back to reality. They all used their spiritual energy and leapt into the air, trying to snatch the rainbow lotus. However, Shisheng wasn't afraid at all. He stood there calmly with a mocking smile on his face. Just as those people touched the second floor, they suddenly fell down like dumplings. Following that, a large number of people collapsed. Those who were barely able to stand were also powerless and did not dare to move. Don't waste your energy. You've been poisoned the moment you stepped in here. When the people below heard this, they immediately tried to use their spiritual energy to force the poison out. Friendly reminder, you'll die faster if you use your spiritual energy. Asterisk pleading for votes. There's a Mid-Autumn Festival event in the book review section. Chapter 208. As soon as Shisheng finished speaking, the first few people to use their spiritual energy started foaming at the mouth. They fell to the ground and started convulsing. Within 10 seconds, they stopped breathing. This change made everyone's expression change. Shen Yaoguang, not all of our people are here. Even if you've poisoned us, they'll save us sooner or later when they find out. You're making the entire continent your enemy. You make it sound like I'm going to do something to you. Shisheng pursed his lips. I invited you to watch the destruction of the rainbow lotus, and prove it to me. Don't keep circling around me. Shisheng tossed the rainbow lotus, which had already lost its luster and withered, to the ground. She gloated. Take a good look at the rainbow lotus you guys want. You might only get to see it once in your lifetime. The people below were so angry they wanted to vomit blood. This Shen Yaoguang was crazy. So many of them had been invited here, but in the end, they had to watch as the rainbow lotus turned into trash. Their hearts were bleeding. Countless people blacklisted Shen Yaoguang in their hearts. This woman tricked them once and dared to do it again. How hateful. Jun Hanlin, who was standing in the corner, was also livid under his mask. This woman was really surprising. The rainbow lotus was destroyed just like that. The only reason was that the people on the continent were thinking about her. Last time, he thought he was getting rid of her backer, but in the end he was just paving the way for her. He wondered if she had predicted that he would attack the Shen family when she provoked him. Shisheng seemed to have noticed his gaze as she glanced at him from the corner of her eye. Her gaze was as calm as ever. For some reason, Jun Hanlin suddenly felt that he had been recognized. Shisheng looked away after a few seconds. Someone will give you the antidote when you leave the city. If you have any backbone, don't take it. If not, just take it. After a pause, he continued. This poison will make your body weak and you can't use spiritual energy. There are no other side effects. I believe that you won't bow down to evil forces, right? I have faith in you. Uft. There was no such thing as the most shameless, only more shameless. They couldn't hit her, and scolding her had no effect at all. The group was sullen. When they left the city, they were still debating whether to take the antidote. Qin Langyue hadn't expected such an outcome. She clearly had a chance to recover, but Shen Yaoguang had personally crushed her hopes. She hated him. Out of the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a masked man walking past her. He had a jade pendant on his waist. That jade pendant looked very familiar. Jun Hanlin. Qin Langyue suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the man's arm. Jun Hanlin, why are you here? She had seen that jade pendant on June Hanlon before, but he wasn't wearing it at that time. She had seen it by accident and almost forgot about it when she saw it just now. Why would a fool like June Hanlon appear here? Something's not right. His aura is completely different. Let go. June Hanlon frowned and scolded. If it weren't for the fact that he was so weak right now, he would have already shaken off the woman who was pulling him. Although he couldn't see the face beneath the black veil, he couldn't be mistaken about the voice. It was Qin Langyue, his fiancée. The last time they returned from the setting sun forest, she had wrapped herself up tightly, and her attitude towards him was even worse. She had even hit him a few times. How could June Hanlon be nice to her now? Girl, you've got the wrong person. The seventh prince can't possibly be here. Zhongxi hurriedly pulled Qin Langyue back. I'm not mistaken, he's June Hanlon. Qin Langyue shook her head. June Hanlon, you're not a fool. You're lying to me. Fool. Sorry to disappoint you, but I'm not. June Hanlon's voice carried a hint of sarcasm. He was going to make his move when he returned, so there was no need to hide anymore. Why did you lie to me? Qin Langyue used all her strength to hold on to June Hanlon. She didn't know why, but her intuition told her that she should hold on tight to him. June Hanlon's sharp gaze fell on Qin Langyue. Why? Who do you think you are? Why do I need to explain my actions to you? A trace of panic flashed through Qin Langyue's eyes, but she quickly calmed down, as if she was grasping at a life-saving straw. I'm your fiancé. Then from now on you're not. June Hanlon pulled his arm away from Qin Langyue's grasp, sneering in his heart. Qin Langyue, you disgust me. Qin Langyue, you disgust me. You disgust me. Disgust me. These words kept repeating in her head. Why did he lie to me? He's clearly not a fool, so why did he lie to me? Why? The despair and resentment in her eyes were gradually replaced by hostility. By the time Zhongxi noticed that something was wrong with Qin Langyue, it was already too late to stop her. Zhongxi was the first to suffer. A person who fell into a demonic state would lose their mind and go on a killing spree. Moreover, they would be extremely obsessed with their inner demons. Qin Langyue's inner demon was Shisheng. News of someone going on a killing spree in Four Corner City quickly reached Shisheng's ears. As the city lord, Shisheng naturally had to go and take a look. Most people hadn't left the city yet. After all, they didn't have much strength left, so it was already good enough that they'd made it this far. None of them had expected Qin Langyue to suddenly go on a killing spree. Many of them had suffered such grievous deaths. How could Qin Langyue go on a killing spree? Haha. Can you explain a person who fell into a demonic state with common sense? In novels, people who fell into a demonic state could go berserk even if they still had a single breath left. By the time Shisheng arrived, the people of Four Corner City had already surrounded Qin Langyue and were attacking her in a flurry. As soon as she appeared, Qin Langyue was like a ferocious beast that had caught the scent of food. Her pitch-black eyes stared straight at her as her body flashed, and she dashed toward Shisheng. Wherever she passed, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. The wind lifted the black veil covering her face, revealing her bark-like skin underneath. The people around her all sucked in a breath of cold air. This woman's figure looked like a young woman, so how could she be so terrifying under her veil? Shen Yaoguangdai. Qin Langyue's voice was stiff, but one could still hear the hatred in it. Shisheng drew his iron sword. He'd wanted to show off and block Qin Langyue's attack, but the power behind it had exceeded his expectations. His body staggered ungracefully. Holy shit! Falling into a demonic state really is something. Even her battle prowess has skyrocketed. After Qin Langyue's first attack succeeded, a second one followed. Shisheng braced himself to fight Qin Langyue. The people around him would occasionally attack Qin Langyue, making it difficult for her to concentrate. This gave Shisheng quite a few opportunities. Qin Langyue was getting a little anxious from the attacks. She suddenly gave up on defending and ran straight toward Shisheng, the black fog in her eyes surging wildly. Shen Yaoguang. Bu Jingyun's voice suddenly rang out from behind, almost shattering Shisheng's eardrums. Then, a red figure appeared in front of her and pushed her back. Bang! There was poison ahead. Chapter 209. Shi Sheng was sent flying by the shockwave and crashed into the city wall behind her. Her ears were ringing and it took her a while to recover. Shi Sheng's heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of her chest. Thump, thump, thump. It sounded like the beating of a drum. She stared blankly at the epicenter of the explosion. It was empty, with only black dust falling from the sky. Many people were affected by the explosion just now, and for a moment, screams and wails filled the air. The scene around her seemed to be in slow motion as it flashed before Shi Sheng's eyes frame by frame. The sky suddenly darkened, and she seemed to hear someone calling for the hall master. The voice was panicked and hoarse. It penetrated her eardrums and went straight to the depths of her soul. Shi Sheng struggled to move her eyes, but all she saw was gray. The hall master is here, hall master. Shi Sheng suddenly got up and ran over, pushing aside the people blocking her way. She immediately saw a red figure with his head held by someone. He was in a sorry state, but his chest was rising and falling, proving that he was still alive. Bu Jingyun. Shi Sheng's voice was trembling. She squatted down and looked at the blood-drenched man. She was suddenly at a loss, and all her calmness collapsed at this moment. She didn't need anyone to shield her. She didn't need. Bu Jingyun's eyes opened a slit, and there seemed to be a dazzling flash of light in his eyes. The enforcer was stuffing all kinds of pills into his mouth, but to no avail. Hall master. The enforcer was on the verge of tears. These were all the best healing pills, why didn't they work? Yao. He suddenly raised his hand and stretched it toward Shi Sheng. Shi Sheng hurriedly grabbed his hand. Don't speak, I won't let you die, she said as she took something out of her space. But no matter what she did, Bu Jingyun didn't seem to get any better. Those things had no effect on him. Shi Sheng stared blankly at him. How could this be? This was probably the most unruly Bu Jingyun had ever seen her, but it was for him. Thinking about it, he felt quite honored. His lips curled into a smile, and his voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Can you kiss me again? Shi Sheng stared blankly for a moment, then seemed to remember something. She leaned forward and kissed Bu Jingyun, sending a steady stream of spiritual energy into his body. Just as her spiritual energy entered Bu Jingyun's body, a throbbing sensation spread from her heart, and a familiar aura washed over her. She widened her eyes in disbelief. However, the person she was kissing had already stopped breathing. He was lying peacefully in her arms with a smile on his face, as if he had just fallen asleep. After a long while, her lips moved and she spat out a name with great difficulty. Feng. Feng Ci. The Shi Sheng forbade anyone from touching Bu Jingyun. Even the enforcers did not dare to use force against him. She disappeared with Bu Jingyun in tow. On top of the cliff, the girl stood quietly, allowing the wind to blow against her cheeks. The red-robed man was quietly leaning against a rock beside him. His head was slightly tilted, and his red robes fluttered in the wind. If not for the fact that he was already dead, anyone who saw him would think that he was still alive. Shi Sheng's body was ice-cold. Her eyes were empty as she stared at the distant town. A strange feeling ran through her body like an electric current, and her mind went blank. Host. Feng Ci. Shi Sheng's lips moved, but it was extremely difficult for her to speak. Is it him? The system was silent for a moment. Host, how did you know? Shi Sheng's breath caught, and she felt as if something had exploded in her mind. She felt as if she had heard the sound of a landslide, and her chest felt uncomfortably tight. How did she know? When she sent her spiritual energy into Bu Jingyun's body just now, it actually resonated with him. She had only felt that resonance with one person before. Feng Ci. Because of the strange thing he had given her, her spiritual energy resonated with Feng Ci's. It was a very comfortable feeling. When Feng Ci was free, he liked to send his spiritual energy into her body, so she was very familiar with that feeling and would never forget it. But now, she felt it from Bu Jingyun's body. Why is he here? Shi Sheng tried her best to control her emotions, but her voice still trembled. She thought that she could treat Feng Ci as a virtual character, just like the people she had met before. They were all strangers who had nothing to do with her. But she realized that she couldn't. She couldn't do it. Every time in the dead of night, He would silently appear in her dazzling dreams. The image of him jumping off the peak of the North Mountain with her in his arms was like a nightmare that tormented her. She even had the crazy thought of returning to that world. But in the end, reason prevailed over madness. "I'm sorry, host. I have no right to answer you. You have to rely on yourself." The system was relieved. Fortunately, the host wasn't really that heartless. She hid her feelings so deeply that even the system couldn't sense them. But it still couldn't understand why Feng Xiai was different to her. How did she know? Clearly, before Shisheng didn't say anything else. She quietly looked into the distance. She had already suppressed the surging emotions in her eyes and had regained her eternal calm. It was as if the person who had almost lost control just now wasn't her. The sky was gloomy, and bean-sized raindrops fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, it became a downpour, blurring the girl's slender figure in the rain. She suddenly crouched down and buried her head in her arms. The sound of the rain drowned out all other sounds. She just crouched there quietly. After an unknown amount of time, the rain continued to pour. The girl stood up, walked to the red-robed man's side, and picked him up. She slowly turned around and walked towards the edge of the cliff. She took a step towards the void, and her body suddenly fell. Is the host seeking death? Of course, Shisheng wouldn't seek death. Halfway through her fall, the iron sword suddenly appeared and caught her. Shisheng brought Bu Jingyan back to Nine Silences Hall and held a funeral for him. Then she took the iron sword and left Nine Silences Hall. Not long after, news of her came from the continent. She said that she would give this continent to him. Even if he wasn't here, this promise was still valid. Everyone who met Shisheng thought that she was crazy. She didn't care about whether she would die or not. She was injured and bleeding, and her life was hanging by a thread, but she was still so calm. It was as if everyone was dead in her eyes. She couldn't hear their curses, couldn't see their anger, and couldn't feel their hatred. Jun Hanlin had just ascended the throne when Shisheng came calling. Jun Hanlin was so angry that he vomited blood. It took her 3 years to unify the 9 states continent. When the people of the continent saw her put a memorial tablet on the throne, they almost went crazy. This woman was crazy. She went through so much trouble just to make a memorial tablet the ruler of the continent. That name caused them to be shocked again. Bu Jingyan. Thank you to the cherub who tipped me. The 7th plane has ended. The next plane, supernatural language. It's not scary. It's a different kind of supernatural language. Trust me. Little Sheng is about to embark on the path of doting on her husband. Today's death is tomorrow's doting. Okay, let's weekly beg for votes. Chapter 210. When Shisheng returned to the system space, he felt like something was wrong. He stood there for a long time without saying a word. The system pondered for a long time, but it didn't say anything. The current host didn't seem to be someone to be trifled with. After an unknown amount of time, she slowly walked towards the screen. Her head was slightly lowered, making it impossible to see her expression. The pressure around her was extremely low. Just as the system was trembling in fear, she suddenly slammed her hand on the screen. Shouldn't you give me an explanation? Her voice sounded like it was squeezed out through gritted teeth. Host. I'm just a system. Don't make things difficult for me. Shisheng's fingertips rubbed against the screen a few times. The light from the screen shone on her face, making her look extremely gloomy. You can't explain? Then I'll tear you apart. Host. Tear me apart? How can I do that? Speak. If the system was human, it would definitely be trembling right now. After a while, it finally said, Host, I can only tell you that Feng Xiai will appear in the quest. I can't say anything else. That was its bottom line. He'll appear in every quest? Shisheng's eyes flashed. No comment. Shisheng retracted her hand. What is the person behind you plotting against me? Is the host suffering from paranoia? Forget it. It's better for it to shut up. Shisheng looked at the information on the screen expressionlessly. Name, Shisheng morality points. 125000 health points. 20 contribution points. 13500 quest rank. Sequest score. 76 hidden quest. Failed hidden quest reward. 0 contribution points side quest. Failed side quest reward. 0 contribution points item list. Queen's Crown. Not only did she lose 3,000 morality points, but she also lost 10 HP. Shi Sheng resisted the urge to tear the system apart, but when she thought about the possibility of meeting Feng Xi in the quest, she held back. Why was Bu Jingyan hit by the red sleeve lure? Check the hidden quest. Check. Although Bu Jingyan wasn't born into a prestigious family, he was still somewhat famous. The year Bu Jingyan was born, his father disappeared. Eldest uncle lusted after Mother Bu's beauty, but Mother Bu was a weak woman who couldn't protect herself. For the sake of Bu Jingyan, Mother Bu was forced to marry eldest uncle. However, first uncle already had his own wife and children. After Mrs. Bu got married, first uncle's wife had always been against Mrs. Bu. However, the more she behaved like this, the more eldest uncle doted on her mother. Eldest uncle's wife was so jealous that her mind was twisted. She got the recipe for the red sleeve lure from a rogue cultivator, so she gave eldest uncle the red sleeve lure. She did not expect that not only did eldest uncle dote on Mother Bu, he even treated Bu Jingyan as his own son. The chicken soup that eldest uncle's wife gave to eldest uncle was laced with the lure of red sleeves, and Bu Jingyan drank it. However, Bu Jingyan did not complete the entire forbidden technique, so the red sleeve lure in his body was only a half-finished product. This was also why he did not need to drink the blood of specific women. The half-finished red sleeve lure would not act up so quickly. It was only when Bu Jingyan was 16 that he had his first reaction. After uncle's wife found out, she immediately spread the rumor that he was a monster. At that time, the Bu family had already fallen into the hands of eldest uncle's wife. Eldest uncle had the will but was powerless, and Mother Bu had died an unnatural death in order to protect Bu Jingyan. Bu Jingyan fled that very night. After that, he endured and cultivated. Finally, at the age of 25, he single-handedly destroyed the Bu family and became famous. Bu Jingyan was the typical male protagonist of a fantasy novel. Of course, that was if he did not grow up to be a crooked character. Feng Xi, since you're already here, stay. I feel like the host is turning evil. Sob sob sob. Master, the host is getting scarier and scarier. Please protect me. Do you wish to enter the next realm? Initializing teleportation. When Shi Sheng woke up, he found himself floating. Yes, floating. She was wearing a long white robe, and her black hair was hanging in front of her eyes. She looked very much like Sadako from the TV series. Shi Sheng was dumbfounded for a moment. This was not the right way to appear. What? Okay, I'll be right there. A voice came from next door, followed by a series of banging sounds. A woman in pajamas rushed in through the door. She hurriedly changed her clothes, then rushed out like a gust of wind. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. Shi Sheng was dumbfounded the entire time. Could she not see him? He lowered his head and tugged at his long white robe. Ghost? A supernatural novel? Shi Sheng sweated. He guessed that the woman would not be back for a while, so he found a secluded place and started reading the plot. This was a supernatural novel. The female lead, Ansu, was a university student. She went to visit a haunted house with her classmates and ended up having a one-night stand with a ghost king. Yep, even supernatural novels had flesh and blood. After sleeping with the ghost king, the female lead unlocked a cheat that allowed her to see ghosts. Thus, all kinds of strange and bizarre supernatural events started happening around her. The rest of the story was about the female lead and male lead working together to solve the case. They unraveled their backgrounds, and the villains came out to cause trouble for them. After a bit of torture, the male lead was brought back to life. After that, the two of them lived happily ever after. The original owner, Ningying, was a ghost with no memories. She did not remember how she died. She only remembered that her name was Ningying. She was a little ghost raised by the villain, Feng Jin. She was sent to be a spy by the male lead, but she ended up falling in love with him. At first, the male lead had Ningying scare the female lead. Then he would play the hero and save the damsel in distress. Ningying was very cooperative at first, but after a few times, she realized that the male lead had fallen in love with the female lead. How could she let her beloved ghost fall in love with someone else? Thus Ningning began to seek death. She targeted the female lead in all kinds of ways, such as getting hit by a car outside, or getting hit by a flower pot while standing downstairs. Later on, the male lead and female lead got into an argument. In the end, the male lead purposely got close to Ningning, causing the female lead to misunderstand and become jealous. In the end, the misunderstanding was resolved, and the male lead and female lead reconciled, leaving Ningning dumbfounded. Thus Ningning became even more evil. She almost took the female lead's life several times. When the male lead found out that it was Ningning who did it, he beat her up so badly that her soul almost dissipated. In the end, it was Feng Jin who called her back to avoid disaster. The female lead's classic change. If I can't have you, I'll destroy you. At first, she helped Feng Jin deal with the male lead, but she couldn't bring herself to do it at the critical moment. Feng Jin wasn't a talkative person, but he had a vicious heart. Every time Ningning failed because she couldn't bring herself to do it, Feng Jin wouldn't punish her. Instead, he would take her to watch the male and female lead being lovey-dovey. There was probably nothing more cruel and vicious than watching the person you loved being intimate with another woman. In the final confrontation, Feng Jin kidnapped the female lead to threaten the male lead, while Ningning watched over the female lead. When the male lead came to save the female lead and fell into a trap, the original owner of the body went crazy and saved the female lead. However, the male lead thought that she wanted to harm the female lead. Seeing her beloved ghost about to kill her, Ningning suddenly regretted her actions. In the end, Ningning was killed by the male lead. The original owner of the body had two wishes. The first was to let the male lead have a taste of what it was like to love someone but not have them. The second was to reincarnate. * daily pleading ticket. Chapter 211. She'd arrived at the exact time the male lead had told her to scare the female lead. She'd already scared the female lead once last night, so she was currently upstairs. Tonight, she was going to scare the female lead again so that the male lead could save the damsel in distress and roll in the sheets. Sheng was speechless. Was the male lead a pervert? His head was filled with thoughts of sex. Whenever he saw the female lead eat, he'd want to have sex. Whenever he saw the female lead drink milk, he'd want to have sex. In short, this was a supernatural novel where sex was possible at any time. The title of the novel would be, Lord Ghost Husband, Don't Stop. The male lead of this novel was so perverted, but which male lead would spend all his time thinking about sex? He'd even told a ghost to scare the female lead. For the sake of sex, the male lead had really gone all out. Later on, in order to make the female lead jealous, he'd gotten close to Ningning, causing her to misunderstand. But when she was at her happiest, he'd dealt her a fatal blow, causing her to end up like that. No, Ningning had already been reduced to ashes. How could she still have a chance to regret? System, there's a bug here. Master said that I can't answer her questions. Otherwise I'll be exposed. It pretended not to hear. It didn't speak. The worst thing about being a ghost was that it couldn't go out when the sun was too bright. Sheng looked at the sunlight streaming in through the window. Even from a distance, she could feel the scorching heat. She walked around the house, only to discover a little ghost squatting in the corner of the living room. The little ghost was staring at her. Ghosts weren't that scary when they looked normal. They were about the same as normal people. Little ghosts, in particular, looked even cuter than normal children. You're a ghost too? Sheng floated over to his sideboard. How did you die at such a young age? The little ghost didn't reply. When Sheng turned around, his face suddenly began to bleed from all 7 orifices. His eyeballs sunk in and became hollow. His skin and flesh rotted away, and there seemed to be little white worms crawling around inside. Sheng. Changing your face at the slightest disagreement? You make it sound like I don't know how to do that. Sheng recalled how the original owner had scared the female lead, and immediately changed into an even scarier appearance. The little ghost cried out and returned to his fair and tender appearance. He shrank into a corner and began to cry. Mama, this ghost is so scary. Sheng rolled his eyes at the naughty child. The Sheng ignored the crying kid and ran to the door to play through the wall. When the sun went down, Sheng immediately floated out. There was a small neighborhood outside, and it looked quite old. She floated to the entrance of the neighborhood and saw the female lead coming back. She was wearing refreshing sportswear and looked sweet. When she smiled, there were 2 dimples on her cheeks. She looked especially sweet. However, her smile was a little forced. It was obvious that she was not in a good state. Behind her was the male lead Nailaning. However, the female lead didn't seem to know that the male lead was following her. She skillfully greeted the people in the neighborhood and went upstairs. Nailaning didn't follow the female lead. Instead, he walked up to Shisheng and ordered him coldly, "Continue scaring her today." The ghost chi on his body was very strong. When he leaned over, even though Shisheng could not feel the temperature, he still felt cold. "Oh," Shisheng replied. Nailaning raised his chin arrogantly and walked over to the female lead. Shisheng rubbed his chin and looked at Nailaning's back. The female lead was quite pitiful to be targeted by such a pervert. At night, Shisheng went to Ensu's house. Ensu was in the middle of taking a bath, so Shisheng turned off the electricity. Ensu had encountered a lot of strange things recently. Now that there was a sudden power outage, Ensu was terrified. She dawdled in the bathroom for a while before she took out her phone and shone it outside. Ensu scanned her surroundings with a faint light. She didn't hear anything else, so she wrapped herself in a towel and walked out of the bathroom. After adapting to the darkness for a while, her vision was no longer so dark. She carefully observed her surroundings. "Zizi ah!" Ensu cried out in alarm. She covered her ears and shrank to the side. "Ah! Ah! Intermittent sounds drifted into her ears. That voice was not unfamiliar to her. She opened her ears, and the sound became louder and clearer. She turned her head to look at the television. On the TV screen, 2 white bodies were doing a harmonious exercise. She didn't recognize the woman, but she would recognize the man even if he turned into ashes. That was the ghost who took her virginity. Last night, he even forced himself on her. The scene on the TV became more and more intimate. Ensu's face turned red. It was one thing for him to force himself on her, but he actually showed her something so shameless. "Nailaning, get out here!" Ensu suddenly shouted, her face full of anger. The room returned to darkness as soon as she spoke. Shisheng quickly floated out of the room. Nailaning was now stronger than her. Shisheng didn't dare to hide outside and eavesdrop. It wouldn't be fun if he was discovered. Shisheng swayed as he floated out of the neighborhood. The streets outside were bustling with traffic and lights, but she felt like she couldn't fit in. Well, who told her to be a ghost? What could ghosts do? Ordinary little ghosts could only scare people, give people some porn or something, and cause some accidents. Their magic power was terrifyingly low. Only malicious ghosts could increase their magical power. But if she became a malicious ghost, she wouldn't be able to reincarnate. She wouldn't be able to fulfill the original owner's wishes. Also, if Feng Xi could appear during the mission, she would still look for him. Of course, her people had to stay by her side. It was a bit troublesome to confirm Feng Xi's identity. She needed to use spiritual power. This plane HM? Shisheng sensed for a moment. This plane actually had spiritual energy. Although it wasn't very dense, it wasn't a problem for cultivation. Shisheng guessed that the spells set in this plane also needed spiritual energy to support them. But since there weren't many people who could cultivate, the spiritual energy here was relatively weak. It was just like wearing clothes that were as big as you were. Big clothes would make you look empty and unsatisfied. Small clothes would make you burst. With spiritual energy, things would be much easier. She just had to cultivate like a ghost cultivator in the cultivation world. Shisheng found a place with dense spiritual energy and started absorbing it to cultivate. This cultivation lasted for more than 10 days. Fortunately, she had chosen a place where there was no one around. When Shisheng felt that he had some spiritual energy left and could show off, he leisurely floated back to the city. He first went to Ensu's house to take a look. There was no one there. She was probably at school. And so, Shisheng floated back to school. But just as she floated downstairs, she was stopped by a person. No, a ghost. It was the little ghost she saw before. "Don't go out. There's a bad guy outside." the little ghost said timidly as it hid behind a big tree. Bad guy? What bad guy? She didn't find anything wrong when she came back. The little ghost probably didn't have enough vocabulary in its head. After a while it stuttered. He's very good looking, but very fierce. The two ghosts in the next building were taken away by him. He's very scary. Asterisk begging for votes T to the power of T. Chapter 212. He was good-looking and fierce. Could it be Feng Jin? Shi Sheng's eyes darted around as his mind raced. Feng Jin was the ultimate villain of the story. Feng Xi and Bu Jingyun were both the ultimate villains. Perhaps he was the ultimate villain in the mission world as well. It seemed that she had to take a look at this master. If it was Feng Xi, then she would raise him. The little ghost was frightened by Shi Sheng's sinister smile. His little body trembled involuntarily. Why did he feel that this ghost was scarier than the person outside? Sob sob. Mama, this ghost is really scary. I want to go home. Shi Sheng reached out and patted the little ghost's head. Hurry up and go back. Big sister will help you chase the bad guy away. The little ghost didn't believe it. That bad guy was so powerful that he even subdued the malicious ghost in the building next door. But when he saw Shi Sheng's sinister smile, he tactfully shut up and floated back into the building. Shi Sheng floated outside the neighborhood. There was a metal fence outside the neighborhood. Shi Sheng circled it but didn't see Feng Jin. Could it be that it wasn't Feng Jin? Just as she was feeling puzzled, the system beeped. Hidden mission. Autumn Moon Cold River Shi Sheng. F***CK. Bullying her for not being educated? That idiom was becoming more and more meaningful. Autumn Moon Cold River was a metaphor for a virtuous person with a pure heart. Mission target, Feng Jin. Correct Feng Jin's worldview and turn him into a virtuous exorcist. Shi Sheng. Could she refuse? Virtuous? What the hell? She didn't think that Feng Jin's worldview was anything wrong. The host's worldview was all wrong. Asking her to save someone with such a worldview was too beautiful to imagine. Shi Sheng needed to shut down and take a break. Since the system had issued a mission, Feng Jin must be nearby. Shi Sheng circled the neighborhood again, but still couldn't find him. She rubbed her head in annoyance. Did Feng Jin get off the ground? Feng Jin didn't get off the ground, but he was in the sky. He descended from the sky and landed in front of Shi Sheng. He was wearing a dark blue gown from the period of the Republic of China. It was embroidered with dark patterns and looked noble and luxurious. A few leaves swirled down, and time seemed to drag on for a moment. He tilted his head slightly, and his exquisite facial features were somewhat distorted by the light. His eyes were lowered, and his long and curly eyelashes brushed a small shadow on his fair face. His thin lips were slightly pursed, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. That gown was clearly out of place with the current era, but when he wore it, it was exceptionally well ironed, as if he was a rich young master from that era. He glanced sideways and a pair of slightly gloomy eyes looked over. His voice was slow and low. Where have you been for so many days? Shi Sheng blinked. That's right, I'm now Feng Jin's woman. Ghost. I was captured by Neilening. It wasn't easy for me to escape. Shi Sheng's little face immediately fell. He opened his mouth and started slandering the male lead. He floated toward Feng Jin and tried to grab his wrist. However, before he could touch her, he felt a burning pain on his fingertips. Shi Sheng reflexively retracted his hand. F***CK. I can't touch Feng Jin? Then how can I be sure that he's not Feng Xi? Melancholy. A strange light flashed through Feng Jin's gloomy eyes, as if he hadn't noticed her movements. Neilening captured you? Why? How would I know? He suddenly captured me. Shi Sheng rubbed his fingers and nodded, not forgetting to slander the male lead. I don't want to stay by his side. He's too perverted. Perverted? Feng Jin said this word very slowly, as if he didn't understand why Shi Sheng would describe Neilening in such a way. That's right. He's old and perverted. He always wants to have sex with girl. And Sue. I'm still a pure person. Why would I think of such dirty things? Shi Sheng nodded seriously as he reached out to touch Feng Jin. However, he quickly retracted his hand as if he'd been electrocuted. Feng Jin looked at his foolish behavior and didn't react. He only calmly reminded him, "You're a ghost now." After a pause he said, "Then come back with me." "Okay." Shisheng circled Feng Jin twice, then asked curiously, "What are you doing here? Aren't you going to avenge me?" "Collecting ghosts." Feng Jin glanced at him and said honestly, "Nailaning is too strong. I'm not his match." The villain wasn't strong enough to crush the male and female leads. Shisheng looked disappointed. "Then I'll just do it myself." The villains were too weak. Bad review. Extremely bad review. Ha. Feng Jin didn't hear what she was mumbling. Shisheng looked at the sky with a melancholy expression and didn't answer Feng Jin. "Feng Jin. Why is there something wrong with this ghost I'm raising?" Feng Jin brought Shisheng back. Shisheng didn't stop for a moment on the way back. One moment, he'd float here and there, scaring the ghosts that passed by and causing them to run amok. Feng Jin was depressed. Why didn't he notice this hidden personality of his in the past? Feng Jin was the successor of the Feng family in the exorcist world. He moved out of the Feng family mansion when he turned 18 and lived in an ordinary residential area. There were 2 bedrooms, a study, and another room next to the study. The original owner of the body had never been in that room, so she didn't know what it was. Feng Jin brought Shisheng back and went into the room next to the study without giving her any instructions. Shisheng had no choice but to walk around the living room. The place was tidy and neat. Feng Jin only came out when she was done. Shisheng immediately went over and reached out to touch him. Naturally, he bounced back. "Why can't I touch you?" Shisheng rubbed his fingers, his face twitching. "I just want to touch you. There's a difference between humans and ghosts." Feng Jin's gloomy eyes swept over him. "Shisheng. Bullshit. How can the male and female leads touch each other? They can even have sex." Feng Jin lit an incense stick for her. Shisheng floated in the air with a look of disdain. "I want to eat meat. How dare you entertain me with this thing? Give me a bad review. Even if I'm Feng Ci, I'll give you a bad review." Feng Jin frowned, the suspicion in his heart growing. "Didn't you tell me you don't like meat? When did I say that? You used to only give me this thing to eat." My face turned green from eating it. "Look." Shisheng stuck his face in front of Feng Jin. "It turned ugly. Do you know that you're mistreating your employees? I can complain about you." Feng Jin's eyebrows twitched. "Where can I complain? Do you think I'm working at the company? Did Nailaning trigger some hidden personality out of me this time? Humans can change their personality after experiencing certain things, and ghosts are the same. Asterisk, come on, vote for me. It's the last day of the week, so please vote for me. I'll be lucky next week. There's a mid-autumn festival in the book review and comment section. Otherwise, I won't be able to reach so many comments." Chapter 213. In the end, Shisheng still managed to eat meat. "Tui." Sniff. Feng Jin watched as the white figure paced back and forth around the table, trying to reach for food. He was speechless. Not only had her personality changed, but her IQ had also gone offline. Shisheng expressed that it wasn't that her IQ had gone offline, but that she wasn't used to being a ghost. She actually couldn't eat meat. Bad review. Being a ghost wasn't good at all. Shisheng floated over to Feng Jin. "Is there any way for me to return to the living world?" Since the male lead had already returned to the living world, there was definitely a way for her to return to the living world. Feng Jin raised his head to look at her. His gloomy eyes were filled with yin energy. The temperature in the room seemed to have frozen, and a heavy weight pressed down on Shisheng. Shisheng frowned. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly felt that he couldn't move. It was as if invisible ropes had bound his limbs. He couldn't move at all. F***ck, what's going on? Feng Jin stood up. His pale fingers pinched Shisheng's chin and lifted it slightly. The moment Feng Jin touched him, Shisheng felt as if his chin had been corroded by strong acid. The numbing sensation made him want to die. "Ninging. What did Nailaning give you to test me?" F***ck, who's testing you? There's cat biscuits. Sheng grimaced in pain. He summoned the iron sword and swung it at Feng Jin. Do you think I'm a pushover? Feng Jin frowned the moment the iron sword appeared. This sword, however, the iron sword didn't give Feng Jin a chance to think. It slashed at his head. If Feng Jin wanted to avoid the iron sword, he had to let go of Sheng. As soon as he did, the iron sword immediately flew back to Sheng's side and cut off the invisible ropes binding him. As soon as the ropes were removed, Sheng clutched his chin and stomped his feet in pain. He howled at Feng Jin. Feng Jin, you have cat biscuits. Ice chin. F***ck, I'm crippled, aren't I? Feng Jin stood on the opposite side of the sofa, looking at the iron sword beside her with a dark and gloomy gaze. After a while, Sheng felt the burning pain lessen a little. When he looked up, he saw Feng Jin sizing up the iron sword. What does Nailaning want you to find out from me? Feng Jin averted his gaze, a hint of fear in his voice. It had only been a month since he last saw her, but she actually had an unknown sword and even betrayed him. When he thought of this, Feng Jin's heart surged with anger. Those who betrayed him deserved to die. It was as if a storm was brewing in the depths of his eyes, and he was about to tear the Sheng apart. Hey, don't be so evil. Sensing that something was wrong with Feng Jin's expression, Sheng hurriedly said, I have nothing to do with Nailaning. He's just a pervert. Why would I fall for him? Why are you looking at me like that? You don't believe me? I can't do anything about it. Sheng spread his hands with an expression that said, It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Anyway, it's what I said. He would turn evil at the slightest disagreement. He wasn't cute at all. He definitely wasn't her Feng Ci. Sheng held the iron sword and gauged the strength of both sides. In the end, he chose to give up. She really wanted him to come over and let her touch him. If this guy wasn't Feng Ci, she would chop him up. But now that she wasn't sure, she didn't dare to cut him down. Feng Jin stared at her, deep in thought. The entire room fell silent. Ghosts didn't breathe, but Sheng could barely hear Feng Jin's breathing. If it weren't for his rising and falling chest, she would have suspected that this guy was also a ghost. Tonight, do it for me. After saying this, Feng Jin turned around and went into the study. Do it for him? Do it for him? Seriously. I'm so angry. Sheng poked the iron sword at the sofa in Feng Jin's house. In the end, he felt that it wasn't enough to vent his anger, so he slashed it a few more times. Just like that, the innocent sofa was dismembered. Half an hour before midnight, Feng Jin came out of his room. When he saw the mess in his room, he was momentarily speechless. He looked at the female ghost in white who was sitting on a high chair piled up by a pile of junk. She had her legs crossed and her head propped up in her hands. She was humming an unknown tune. If it weren't for the ghost's contract between them, he really would have suspected that she had been impersonated. Although Ninging had a bit of a temper in the past, she was very obedient. She never dared to be so impudent in front of him. She was going to tear down his house. Feng Jin clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles cracked. What if he wanted to strangle her? Sheng floated over to Feng Jin with the iron sword in tow and waved his hand domineeringly. Lead the way. Yep, I want to strangle her even more now. The room was a little dim, so Feng Jin's face was hidden in the darkness. However, his eyes emitted a faint, cold light. Sheng cautiously floated back a distance. I sell my body, not my skills. Although I'm a ghost you're raising, I won't allow you to have an unfinished relationship with a ghost. Not his skills. His skills in bed? Feng Jin resisted the urge to strangle Sheng and opened the door to leave. Before Sheng could follow, the door slammed shut with a bang. Sheng was so startled that he slammed on the brakes. His face was full of emotions. That's not right. She can just go through the wall. Why did he stop? Sheng dragged the iron sword out the door. He did go out, but the iron sword was stuck. The iron sword was a physical object. Naturally, it couldn't go through the door. Feng Jin silently watched as Sheng made a fool of himself. In the end, his door was gloriously sacrificed and died without a burial place. He was chopped in half. Feng Jin. This violent maniac. Satisfied, Sheng dragged the iron sword out the door. How could a small matter like this stump him? He couldn't put the iron sword away. That bastard Feng Jin wanted to kill him. Saving his own life was more important. Put it away. Feng Jin shifted his gaze from security door's corpse, which had completed its mission, to Sheng. Sheng hid the iron sword behind his back. I can cut off my head and bleed, but I can't drop my weapon. This is a weapon forged from my soul. I won't take it. Feng Jin. Where did this Chinibu come from? He took a deep breath. It can't turn invisible. It'll attract attention. Are you kidding me? Who would be outside at this hour? Aren't they afraid of running into ghosts? Sheng made it clear that he wasn't going to take it. What could he do about it? Feng Jin glanced at the broken security door one more time, then silently turned around and walked toward the elevator. Although he lived in an ordinary residential area, there was no one on this floor. Even if someone came, they wouldn't be able to enter. Hence, it was fine even if the door was left open. Sheng eagerly followed him in. Unwilling to give up, he kept trying to touch Feng Jin. Feng Jin didn't look at him and ignored him. After they got into the car, Sheng finally calmed down. She had to think of a way to suppress the ghost contract between her and Feng Jin. Otherwise, if she really pissed Feng Jin off and he wanted to kill her, she probably wouldn't be able to escape. There were a lot of restrictions in a contract. For example, the ghost contract between her and Feng Jin was a master-servant contract. If Feng Jin wanted her dead, she wouldn't be able to resist. For the sake of her life, Sheng decided not to tease Feng Jin for the time being. She would tease him again when she found a way. Asterisk, tipping and updating. Thanks to Fairy's Pocket Cherub for the tip. Chapter 214. Feng Jin brought Sheng to Ensu's neighborhood. Sheng wanted to float out of the car, but then he remembered that his sword couldn't go through the door, so he could only get out from Feng Jin's side. Open the door himself? Sorry, but ghosts need to use their magical power to touch objects. How could they waste their magical power over such a trivial matter? They had to save their magical power for fighting. Feng Jin's car was parked on the road outside the neighborhood. It was quiet all around, with only the occasional car whizzing by in the distance. Sheng dragged the iron sword behind him as he followed Feng Jin. If someone else were here, they would see the sword flying by itself. The neighborhood was old-fashioned, and the security measures weren't very good. Feng Jin easily climbed over the fence. There were a few buildings that weren't too tall, and the occasional light from the first floor was like a beacon in the dark. Feng Jin stopped at Ensu's building and looked up for a while. Then he turned to Sheng and said softly, "Go lure Neilanning out." Sheng pointed at himself. "Me alone." "Bah, a ghost. Didn't you want me to believe you? Then prove it to me and lure him out." Feng Jin spoke very slowly, as if he wanted Sheng to hear him clearly. "How do you know he's here?" Was Feng Jin so sure that Neilanning was here? Even if he liked to have sex with the female lead, he still had time to rest, right? "You don't want to go?" Feng Jin's voice suddenly turned sinister. "Sheng. Fine, I'll go. I'm not scared of you. Watch me beat up the male lead. You'll be scared to death." Sheng dragged the iron sword and floated upstairs. Feng Jin wanted to remind her that the sword was too eye-catching. But when he thought about how she'd used that sword to destroy his house, he averted his gaze as if it didn't concern him. Sheng floated to Ensu's window. Her window was the old-fashioned kind, and it wasn't closed. The curtains fluttered wildly in the wind, casting a sinister shadow on the ground. Sheng floated in through the window, and a faint sound came from the bedroom. It was a strange kind of moaning and moaning. Sheng floated to the bedroom door, gripped the iron sword tightly, took a deep breath and slashed down. "Neilanning, you heartless *****. How dare you sleep with someone else here?" Sheng roared as soon as he entered the room. Then he slashed at the person on the bed. "Ah!" Ensu shrieked in fright at this sudden shout. Neilanning hugged Ensu and rolled to the ground. The two of them were both naked, and a certain part of their bodies was tightly pressed together. Sheng did not give Neilanning a chance to react. She raised her sword and slashed at him again. "You scumbag! You played with my feelings and now you're having sex with her. Are you cheating on her again? You are harming him by sucking his young energy." Why are you so disgusting? I must have been blind in the past. And Sue didn't see Shisheng. She only saw an iron sword continuously attacking them, and a clear, angry voice shouting in her ears. Seeing that it was about time, Shisheng immediately withdrew his sword and floated outside. Neilanning let go of Ansu and immediately put on a set of clothes. He stood up and chased after Shisheng. How dare he interrupt me at a time like this? He's courting death. Neilanning was faster than Shisheng expected. Before she could leave the building, Neilanning had already blocked her path. He stared coldly at Shisheng. Then he suddenly raised his hand. Shisheng felt a suction force pulling her towards him. The old light bulbs in the corridor began to hum and flicker. The two of them became eerie. Holy shit, this is the star-sucking technique. Shisheng stabbed his iron sword into the wall beside him to stabilize himself. Then he glanced at the unprotected window of the emergency exit. Shisheng moved to the window, gritted his teeth, and jumped out. As soon as he was outside, the suction force disappeared. However, Neilanning quickly chased after him. The two of them landed in the greenery outside the neighborhood. Neilanning used the same trick again. Mother****, are you done yet? Shisheng quickly took out the little ball. With the little ball in hand, I have the world. Not to mention the male lead. Even God has to bow down to me. Shisheng threw the little ball at him. The male lead probably sensed that it was dangerous and dodged it. However, he was still caught in the explosion and was sent flying by the shockwave. The explosion was so loud that the lights in the nearby buildings lit up one after another. Shisheng dragged his iron sword and ran out of the neighborhood. The residents of the neighborhood only saw a large crater in the greenery. Lightning flashed in the crater, making it look eerie in the dark night. Shisheng dragged the iron sword out of the neighborhood and floated all the way to Fengjin's car. Fengjin hadn't returned yet. She waited for a while before Fengjin slowly came out. He gave Shisheng a strange look before opening the car door. Shisheng floated in before he could get in. Fengjin paused for a moment before getting into the car. Fengjin didn't drive, so the lights in the car were off. It was dark, so Shisheng couldn't see Fengjin's expression. That thing you threw just now. He hadn't seen this ghost for a month. How did it become so powerful? I'm not selling it. Shisheng leaned back cautiously. Fengjin was silent for a few seconds before he started the car. Don't blow up my house. What a waste. Shisheng pursed his lips and added arrogantly. I can easily take care of your lousy place. Fengjin slammed on the accelerator, and Shisheng almost got plastered on the car window. Fengjin seemed to believe that Shisheng had nothing to do with Neilanning, but he didn't mention anything about his return to the living world. The next day, Shisheng saw a sensational piece of news on the internet. A mysterious crater has appeared in a certain neighborhood. Lightning hasn't dissipated. Aliens are suspected to have visited Earth. This piece of news immediately went viral on all the major websites. The neighborhood wherein Sue lived became famous. All the major research teams flocked to the neighborhood, and the media surrounded it. Shisheng snorted as he sniffed the aroma of meat. Aliens aren't people they can meet whenever they want. In their dreams. Fengjin raised his head and glanced at her. He reached out to bring the laptop to his side and slammed it shut. What are you doing? Shisheng glared at him. Don't talk when you're eating. I haven't eaten yet. I'm just smelling, okay? My mouth is so bland. Just smelling it makes me hungrier. Why can't ghosts eat? Don't ghosts eat and drink as much as they want in novels? Shisheng propped up his chin and looked at Fengjin with melancholy. Being a ghost isn't good at all. Fengjin acted as if he didn't hear him. He elegantly finished the last mouthful of milk, then got up and carried the plate to the kitchen where he washed it clean. He's ignoring me. What a temper. Shisheng floated behind him and tried to touch him, but a burning pain came from his fingertips. He retracted his hand, feeling extremely melancholy. How can I touch you? If this goes on, how can I be sure that he's Feng Ci? Fengjin wiped the plate dry and put it on the rack. He turned to look at her. Endure it. Endure what? Fengjin stared into her eyes. Endure the pain. Shisheng. Tip and update. Thank you to Fairy's Pocket Cherub for the tip. Let me seriously ask for a vote. Chapter 215. Feng Jin realized that his ghost had been appearing and disappearing unpredictably for the past few days. He had no idea what she was up to. What was Shisheng doing? She was trying to find a way to break the ghost's contract or reverse it. Of course, reality proved that she was delusional. Until now, she hadn't found a feasible solution. The only solution was to break the ghost's contract. Feng Jin came out of his room and saw Shisheng floating around the living room. She was dressed in white, and it was night time. Anyone else would have wet their pants in fright. When Shisheng saw Feng Jin, she immediately floated over. "Help me burn some clothes. It's so ugly to wear this all day." Feng Jin. She really doesn't think of me as an outsider. Yes, an outsider. At the very least, I'm the representative of your door. How could I wear something so ugly? You'll lose face if I go out. Shisheng blabbered on and on. Feng Jin had the urge to sew her mouth shut with a needle. Isn't it better to be a quiet ghost? When Shisheng saw that Feng Jin was silent and gloomy, she courted death by reaching out to touch him. It was the same recipe and the same taste. Shisheng hugged her fingers and floated out the window. "I'm so angry. You won't let me wear clothes, eat meat, and touch people. I'm going to run away from home." Feng Jin watched her figure disappear into the night. His temples throbbed violently as he walked toward the entryway. When he went downstairs, Feng Jin saw Shisheng standing with a red shadow from afar. Before he could get a good look, the iron sword suddenly appeared in Shisheng's hand, and she slashed at the red shadow. It was so fast that the red shadow didn't even have a chance to resist before it was reduced to ashes. Feng Jin felt that he had underestimated this ghost of his. Although the ghost just now wasn't a real malicious ghost, it was still one step away from becoming one. Yet, she had destroyed it so easily. She was stealing an exorcist job. But Feng Jin narrowed his eyes. Why would a malicious ghost appear here? Shisheng stabbed the iron sword into the ground with a gloomy expression. "Mother ***, you're wearing red and you still want to eat eye? Why don't you go to heaven?" As soon as she turned around, she saw Feng Jin standing under the streetlight, looking at her with an indecipherable expression. The dim light elongated his shadow. Seeing her turn around, he walked over. "Come with me." "Where are you going? Why are you running around in the middle of the night?" Feng Jin gave her a sidelong glance, but didn't say anything. Shisheng curled his lips and dragged the iron sword to the garage. Feng Jin sighed heavily. That sword was bound to cause trouble sooner or later. After they got into the car, Shisheng fiddled with her iron sword while Feng Jin drove. His gaze swept over her from time to time. There was a strange song playing in the car, but it was very pleasant to listen to, so Shisheng didn't care about it. "Does your sword have a name?" Feng Jin broke the silence. What he really wanted to know was where she got the sword from. Not only was he able to cut through iron like mud, he was also able to cut through ghosts. Shisheng tilted his head and smiled maliciously. "Have you heard of a legend?" Feng Jin fell silent. There were so many legends. How could he know which one it was? Shisheng didn't wait for him to answer and said softly, "Once upon a time, there was an emperor who wanted a divine weapon to help him rule the world. Someone offered him a sword and told him that as long as he sacrificed his soul, he would be able to forge a soul sword. It would belong to him and no one would be able to take it away from him. It would be able to help him rule the world." Shisheng paused and leaned closer to Feng Jin. He smiled maliciously. "Do you think that emperor sacrificed his soul?" "No." Feng Jin's thin lips moved slightly as he spat out two words. Shisheng curled his lips and sat up straight. The person who offered him the sword told him that if he didn't want to sacrifice his soul, he could sacrifice the souls of 99 infants. So the emperor sent people to capture 99 infants and sacrifice them. He used that sword to unify the world, but on the day he ascended the throne, he died an unnatural death. That sword disappeared without a trace. Later, someone saw that sword killing demons and ghosts, so the world called that sword the exorcist sword. Feng Jin. There was no such emperor in history, and there was no such thing as an exorcist sword. This ghost was making things up. "You don't believe me?" Shisheng looked at Feng Jin and smiled maliciously. "Actually, I don't believe it either. Those infants were forced to be sacrificed, So how could it have the power to exorcise demons? They were seeking revenge. So, you can call it the demon-sucking sword. Fongjin. Hashtag what am I supposed to do with the ghost I'm raising? Waiting online urgent. Hashtag. Host sword keeps changing names. This is crazy. Fongjin's car stopped in front of a villa in the middle of nowhere. It was a white villa, and it was very conspicuous in the dark night. It was surrounded by trees, and the night wind made the trees rustle. The moon in the sky was covered by dark clouds, and looking at the villa at this time, it was very creepy. Shisheng leaned against the car window and looked outside. Is there a ghost in there? I don't know. Fongjin opened the car door and glanced at Shisheng. Shisheng immediately floated over and got out of the car. If you don't know, why are you here? Standing outside, he could feel the creepiness of the villa even more clearly. It was probably a threat from his own kind. Shisheng could feel it even more clearly, and he couldn't help but tremble. Are we here to catch a ghost? Fongjin didn't seem like such a kind-hearted person. Over the past few days, she had learned how evil this fellow could be. He could watch a person get killed by a ghost right in front of him. She didn't think there was anything wrong with it. After all, the other party didn't beg him or pay him. But as an exorcist, wasn't it an occupational hazard to want to catch ghosts whenever he saw one? Depending on the situation? Fongjin started walking toward the villa. As usual, he was wearing a long robe. The color was so dark that it almost blended into the night. Shisheng looked up at the sky with melancholy. What's going on? Someone was waiting at the entrance of the villa. It was an elderly man. Half of his body was hidden in the dark, revealing only his wrinkled face and the lower half of his body. It was indescribably eerie. Mr. Feng. The old man's voice was hoarse and somewhat ear-piercing. It was full of suspicion, as if he couldn't believe that such a young exorcist had come. Fongjin nodded slightly, but didn't answer the old man. The old man didn't say anything either. He just looked behind Fongjin and saw the iron sword floating in the air. His murky eyes lit up, and his attitude became more respectful. Mr. Feng, please come in. This young exorcist was actually able to make the sword float in the air. This young exorcist must be quite capable, right? His master could be saved. Fongjin could roughly guess what the old man was thinking, but he didn't expose him. He couldn't possibly say that there was a ghost holding the sword beside him, could he? Shisheng, who had inadvertently helped Fongjin show off. These people couldn't see her at all. Shisheng flew around with the iron sword. From the looks of it, the iron sword was out of control. The old man followed behind him in fear. Why did he suddenly feel unreliable? It's a new week. Let me ask for a ticket. It's still so early. You still have your ticket, right? Come on, throw it at me. Chapter 216. While the old man was leading the way, Fongjin lowered his voice and said, "Don't cause trouble." Shisheng spun the iron sword like an electric fan, his expression saying, "I didn't hear you. I'm going to cause trouble. Kill me if you can." Fongjin felt that bringing her here had been a mistake. Was it too late to shove her back in now? He was about to use the ghost's contract to control her. "If you dare, I'll take you down with me." Shisheng's threat reached him as soon as he thought of it. "I'm not afraid of death." Fongjin. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered, let alone a ghost. Although they had a master-servant contract, if she wanted to take him down with her, the chances of success were still very high. Besides, she still had that sword. "Don't mess around." Fongjin had no choice but to warn her in a low voice. "I won't mess around if you promise to give me new clothes." As a ghost, she had to use her brain to get clothes. What the hell? Fongjin frowned. "All right." Shisheng immediately put the iron sword away with a smile. Fongjin. By then, the old man had already entered the villa. Fongjin quickened his pace and stepped inside. As soon as he entered the villa, Shisheng felt extremely uncomfortable, as if something was spying on her from the shadows. The light in the villa wasn't very bright, and everything seemed to be covered in a layer of fog. The old man led them up the stairs. The closer they got to the second floor, the stronger the feeling of being spied on. It was a very bad feeling. Shisheng felt a little irritable. He wanted to tear this place down and drag out whatever was spying on her from the shadows. Perhaps it was because her irritable aura was so strong that even Feng Jin could feel it. It won't dare to come near me. Relax. Feng Jin's voice reached Shisheng's ears. She tilted her head and sneered. You think I'm afraid of it? She floated in the air, her lips curled into a mocking smile. Her eyes were calm, but if one looked deeper, they would see the coldness and murderous intent hidden behind that calm. Feng Jin quickly averted his gaze. His irregular heartbeat made his breathing a little chaotic. He had never seen Ningning like this. When he looked into her eyes, he almost couldn't breathe. At that moment, he felt like he was in a space filled with killing intent. Mr. Feng. The old man's voice came from the front. Feng Jin immediately adjusted his state of mind and walked toward the old man. Shisheng paused for a moment before following her. As soon as he entered the room, a strong smell of medicine assaulted his nostrils. There was also a strange smell in the room. There was a middle-aged man on the bed. His face was ashen, and there was not much flesh on his face. He was all skin and bones. His lips were cracked and his breathing was weak. Mr. Feng, please take a look. As soon as the old man saw the middle-aged man on the bed, he couldn't help but cry. I don't know why Mr. started to fall ill. Day by day, he became worse and worse. In the end, he became like this. We tried everything, but it didn't work. We really had no choice but to ask someone to find you. Feng Jin asked the old man a few simple questions. Shisheng drifted absent-mindedly in the room. The aura here was not as strong as outside. Shisheng floated above the middle-aged man and watched as Feng Jin examined him. Feng Jin's movements were slow, but there were no pauses or stagnation. His movements were very pleasing to the eye. Shisheng propped his chin on his hand as he watched the old man. His mind began to wander. I have to quickly find a way to confirm if this is Feng Ci or not. Butler, there's a young lady outside. She says she wants to stay the night here. A servant appeared out of nowhere and rattled on. The old man was clearly surprised. Stay the night? Yes. She said she came here to climb the mountain, but got separated from the group. When she saw the light here, she came over and said she wants to stay the night here. The villa was built here, so it definitely wasn't a deserted area. Next to it was a place frequented by mountain climbing enthusiasts. In the past, people would occasionally come here. If it was any other day, it wouldn't be a problem, but now, take me to her. The old man bowed deeply to Feng Jin. Mr. Feng, I'll have to trouble you. The old man staggered out with the servant, and the room quickly fell into a dead silence. What did you see? Shisheng asked as he sat on the bed. She looked like a completely different person from before. She was so quiet that if one didn't look at her, they wouldn't even be able to sense her presence. What did you see? Feng Jin's eyes flickered. He didn't answer the question. I'm not telling you. The corners of Shisheng's mouth turned up. Feng Jin. If this was someone else's house, they would have been killed long ago. Feng Jin felt that he was indulging her too much. She used to be obedient, so it was fine for him to indulge her a little. But now, it seemed that he would have to teach her the rules when they got back. Ah! A scream suddenly rang out. The entire villa probably heard it. Shisheng dashed outside. Feng Jin hesitated for a moment before following him. If he didn't follow this troublemaker of his, who knew how much trouble she would cause? The sound came from the kitchen on the first floor. Shisheng was definitely faster than a person could walk, so she was the first to arrive. There was a strong smell of blood in the kitchen. Shisheng saw the meat on the chopping board at first glance. Then he saw the woman sitting on the floor. The woman held her head and screamed. She was only wearing a spaghetti strap dress, revealing a large part of her skin. Soon the first person arrived. It was a man in a servant's uniform. He walked over to the woman and helped her up. Madam, what's wrong? There's a ghost, there's a ghost. The woman stuttered, her voice out of tune. The old man also arrived soon after, and there was a girl with him. Shisheng was speechless when he saw her. And Sue, why is she here? There was no such thing in the original plot. And Sue seemed to have noticed Shisheng as well, and her expression changed. In the past, Shisheng had always appeared in front of her in a bloody state, so she didn't recognize him. She was just scared to see a ghost like her. There's a ghost, a ghost, a ghost. The woman called Madam was still mumbling. Hurry and send Madam back to her room. The old man quickly ordered someone to send the woman back. 2 servants supported the woman and escorted her outside. When they reached the door, the woman suddenly broke free from them and ran forward, crashing into the arms of the person who came in. Feng Jin was caught off guard and took a step back. The woman seemed to be terrified. She hugged Feng Jin's waist tightly and pressed her soft breasts against his chest. Shisheng floated to Feng Jin's side and stared at him with an inexplicable gaze. His gaze was calm, but there was something wrong with it. Feng Jin's scalp went numb from that gaze, and he quickly pushed the woman away. There's a ghost, there's a ghost. The woman clung on to him, refusing to let go. Feng Jin's eyes darkened, and he lifted his hand to push her away. He used a lot of strength, and the woman was flung to the wall. The woman wanted to pounce on him again. At that moment, Sue suddenly stepped forward and stood between the woman and Feng Jin. Good morning, my babies. Pleading for votes. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.